Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, February 8th, 2022. We had a break in our semester last week, and we are resuming now. This is the Level 2 presentation for Lesson 4. 2 weeks ago, I did the Level 1 presentation that is for Lesson 5, Mastery of the Mind. That was the beginners or initiatory level of what I teach about. And today, this is the advanced or more extensive level of what I teach about. And you will see how it is complementary to the presentation that I did, what is now 2 weeks ago. So again, as I say to everyone, if it looks like I'm looking off to the left here sometimes, it's because I am, because I have taken extensive notes, and I make those notes available to everyone who's in the class and to everyone on Patreon, because some people find it helpful to learn by reading, read a synopsis, even while you listen to a oral presentation. And also you have something that's physical to refer back to if you want to. You have my permission to save these notes in a folder or whatever you would like to be able to refer back to them for another time. So let me also just take one moment. I am prepared for class, but I just need to pull up an image. So thank you for one moment while I do this. Get a good picture of chakras that I can use in order to talk with everyone about this. And do a little share screen and get my magic board for sharing with you here. Great. So this is a picture, an image of the chakras. And what I'm talking about today is how the journey up the chakras, journeying up the chakras. So we are down here in the physical. Of course, we've been emanated. Oh, and let me also just change the viewpoint over here. We have already been emanated from up here, the source of total intelligence and total energy, and this giant ball of white light, into the physical presence where we are here. Now we are on the return journey. And that's this journey from the general larger wavelengths here, spiraling smaller and smaller and smaller into the specific, focusing greater and greater and in greater detail until we make it to right where I am circling my pencil right now. This is the focus of today's teaching, the energetic intersection between the brow chakra and the crown chakra, and how these two energy field aspects are complementary. They work together, they are in partnership, and this has everything to do with telepathy and the functioning of the higher senses, which is what the name of today's teaching is all about. So we have a journey of energy that's been going from the lower frequency, larger wavelength. None of this is worse, none of this is better. It simply means, oh, sorry, someone is going to be admitted. Hold on one second. There is no better or worse. There is only higher notes or lower notes. So we are moving from the red chakras all the way up to the indigo and violet chakras. I call the aspects of energy that are above the level of green, which is unconditional love here at the heart, at the high chest bone here. All of these I call the higher faculties. Now remember, I go back over my notes by going back into the videos that I recorded in 2013. And I have some really interesting insights to share based on the differences between what I recorded back then and what is now 2022 and what we are experiencing now individually and as a collective in terms of how far we've gone on our journey. So you'll be able to have great, pat on the back, great encouragement of how far humanity has come. But one of the big changes is, I was always teaching about not making this artificial bifurcation between what it is to be human, as human has been defined for, let's say, 5,000 years of recorded human history: red, orange, yellow, and maybe, if you're lucky, up to green. A physical presence, an animal presence, or an emotional mammalian presence, and a human cognitive cortex. That is what the slice of reality that has been defined as what it is to be human. Would then, if under great levels of willpower and self-cultivation, the capacity for some individuals to make it up to the level of green. And that was considered to be like a pinnacle of achievement. And it certainly is an important aspect of achievement. However, it is not pinnacle. It is a prerequisite for the entry into the higher realms That's everything that's in this slice over here. The lighting might make it a little bit more difficult for you to see the colors effectively, but up from green, there's a light blue that's more of a turquoise, a deep, deep blue that is, I call it indigo, because that's what the commonality calls it here, but it is not indigo like your denim color. It is the brightest, purest blue, like a cyan, and then violet. So light blue, pure dark blue, and then cyan, and then violet. Let me speak with the proper words, connect my brain to my mouth here. You know, the flapping of the moving mouth parts can be a challenge, but I know you got my telepathy. Light blue, bright blue, and then violet. That's your throat, your insight, your eye of insight right here. We're going to talk about your eye of insight, your third eye, your eye of time a lot today, and your crown. So first of all, just on my head, on my face, I'll show you that this eye of insight and this crown, they interact, they interrelate in a very special way. This one is coming in at this angle, and this one is coming in at this angle. That is the magical 90-degree angle, the perpendicular angle that I've spoken about in this class in terms of reality building and dimensional expansion. That when we start off with that 0th dimension and we expand outward in any direction, being a 90-degree angle outward from the initial presence of infinity and everythingness, that is the 0th dimension, into the 1st dimension. And then in that 1st dimension, you have a line, and jumping off of that line in any direction that is perpendicular to it creates the 2nd dimension. So this 90-degree angle is part of that magical interplay of dimensional hopping and dimensional shifting. What you have in the interplay of these two chakras, so again, I call this one the Brow Chakra. It is associated with Christ consciousness, and I spent a lot of time 2 weeks ago in the lesson 5 for level 1, mastering the mind presentation. Drinking water. Mastering the mind, and how this is a non-denominational Christ presence, while also giving a huge amount of love and grace and recognition to an actual teacher who was here 2,000 years ago, who's, let's say, the dream or that level of reality. We've been within that teacher's mind, or within that mind presence of that avatar, and that avatar of Christ consciousness lives within us and is part of that reality structuring device and reality projecting device for lack of a better word, apparatus, anatomy, organ, organizational principle. That is what is here on our body. Another anthropomorphic way of phrasing that is to say that this Christ presence lives within and through each one of us as a viewpoint that is here in our third eye. And that today's teaching in terms of telepathy and the functioning of the higher senses has to do with the interplay of this eye and this aperture and this guiding principle, the crown, that connects to God, the abstract divine presence, the organizational intelligence aspect of the higher world. Hold on a second, I just get a little bit distracted sometimes because I have to admit someone. Of the higher dimensional realms, I call it the great librarian. Like, if this is like getting your library card with which you can take out any book and read any scroll of the cosmos and learn about anything. This is the great librarian that actually teaches you and says, you need to check out this book first, then you need to learn about this, then you need to learn about this, and you need to go to page 22 and read this chapter here, because that's going to be important for you to learn about. So it is as essential in the great, vast amount of raw data or knowledge that exists in the world that one can perceive when you begin to activate this aspect of your higher faculties to have guidance and an intelligent organizing principle that tells you what to look at. This is also a feature that reads symbols from your environment. So you are not only reading a book like we are used to saying, like out here, like this is all nonsense, chaos, for lack of a better word, crapola, low signal, low intelligence stuff. But when I go into this magical room that's called the library, that's where organized intelligence actually exists, and everything that's in there is smart and truthful and right. However, when we start to activate this inner eye of wisdom, and when we are guided by this higher connection to God, your GPS, your God positioning system, begin to see that there are signs and symbols everywhere, not just inside of the magical room that is a box of knowledge that's called the library. The entire world becomes the library. The entire world around you becomes an externalization of cosmic intelligence, where there are signs and symbols that are speaking to you all the time. However, it is necessary to recognize them and, let's say, decode them or understand the salience, salience meaning symbolic significance, and also emphasis, let's say editorial emphasis or curatorship of which things to look at. Like in my room, some things are important to look at, some things are not important to look at. Like, here's some old grocery bags that are full of tools and things like that. Like, don't look at that stuff, don't look at that stuff. Here's a beautiful painting that I made, look at that stuff, look at that stuff. But of course, I've got everything up in a jumble over here. This is a perfect example because I haven't set up my room yet. So when your eye just looks at here, if you were not experiencing symbolic salience or this capacity to filter out what is chaos and noise and low signal from what is important and meaningful and juicy and intelligent, then you would just be like, oh, like if you were just a random anthropologist from another world, you'd be like, this pile of rags is fascinating and significant, look at it. I'd be like, no, guys, that's just my cleaning rags. I just used that to clean the floor. You want to look at this object over here. This is something that actually has communication and personal significance in it. That is exactly what we begin to do on this journey of understanding the world of signs and symbols around us. So when I recorded this level 2 recording was kind of at the end of 2012, the beginning of 2013. And I was teaching from that time presence of where we were in our human cultural development. So if you, and I hope that everybody who's in this class and watches these videos, I hope that you do access the recorded materials because they're so loaded with information, so dense. And that's where I return now, almost 10 years later, to refresh my memory and to take extensive notes so that I can do these lectures. I was recording from the viewpoint of saying that Earth has been up until that point quarantined is one word, or let's say limited in connectivity from the human mind and the human mental structure and what humans are thinking and emanating, the human thought form patterns from higher dimensional, less dense realms and other levels of galactic intelligence and other levels of higher intelligence that to even say galactic, it's not about where they are in a star system. It is really about the level or stratum of consciousness at which those beings are residing. And so I was talking about basically the limitations that humanity has been undergoing because of thinking, manifesting, emanating, and acting from a fear-based presence. And that now it is almost 10 years later from my initial recording of that teaching. And I'm so pleased to tell you that many of the blockages and limitations on the individual human experience here and on the human collective in this planet or in this realm or whatever vocabulary word you choose to use to describe what this place is, where we are, level of density or experience zoned experience. Humanity has leveled up. Like it's how everybody like, yes, like do a posture with me of like, yes, triumph. This is like when you break the tape at the end of the marathon, like you haven't finished everything, but man, humans have a moment of celebration with me because you have come so incredibly far in the journey of consciousness in terms of reining in the mind, taking responsibility. And, you know, I've called this level down here, the hacked human operating system. It's from a genetic degradation, as I spoke about 2 weeks ago, that has been ongoing. Humanity has been genetically modified. You've been modded many times from your original perfect, pristine, divine, godlike structure. And that's what I call your factory settings. So, you know, when you return your phone to your factory settings because you're getting a problem or a virus or whatever, when you return your body self and your DNA to your factory settings, you are going back to God and back to your divine God connection. Humanity has been modded many times in its genetic expression from that initial perfect divine factory settings to the point that now, like, you're lucky if you live 100 years, you have to eat physical food or be involved in the interplay of life and death in order for you to sustain yourself. That whole thing, I've spoken about that extensively, not in any way about a judgment or a diminishment of you. I eat food and drink water. Like you see me drinking coffee or drinking juice here. or my beautiful structured water. I am here with you, and there is nothing bad or wrong about ingesting on this level, but know that it's only a part of our journey, as I showed you in that initial sketch today, spiraling back upward to the point of activating the higher faculties. At a certain point, we will change the density of our physicality structure into being non-physical beings, into eating nothing but pure light and being completely sustained on something that you would call a frequency food, which is love. Love, the love tone. But play a little something over here. I don't know if I'm too far away from my instrument to hear it, but here's a love tone. Nothing had to die in order for that food to be created. It is a beautiful love, a beautiful emanation, and love is the currency of the cosmos, or the currency of the universe. I sometimes use both of those words, and they have slightly different meanings, but just we'll use them interchangeably at this moment. So it is different than saying, like, you know, I ate a plant or an animal, something had to die in order for me to eat it. When we are thinking about this, we're talking about a food that is a pure harmonic structure, a food of the mind, a pure thought structure that sustains a body that is also a pure thought structure. So one of the changes that has happened is humanity has done a ton of inner work, healing, and self-cultivation so that you're more in control of your minds, and one is less acting out of a place of fear. And another big change and big shift that has happened is, you know, I spoke when I did, Melissa is saying beautifully, love is the fountain of youth. Yes, absolutely. Love is the interdimensional currency that when it flows through us in a frictionless economy, that means like the love flows into me, it flows through my body in a state of complete non-judgment and acceptance, then it flows out to you, and it doesn't lose anything. You understand? It's not like there's any loss of signal or loss of intelligence or loss of value. It never gets devalued. It is like a gold or something that is untarnished and untarnishable, never loses its molecular structure, and then keeps on being passed from organism to organism throughout an entire current of circuitry. And I use these words currency, circuitry, not in a transhumanistic term, but in the sense of your pure divine nature of being connected in an interconnected holistic whole. But I use these words, just clarifying there. The higher self versus lower self. This is another thing that humanity, break the tape. Like, yes, like you have made it across certain thresholds where there is no longer this huge bifurcation at this level that there was for so long in terms of humans being down here. You're these lowly ego humans, and you're just these silly people, like, you know, knowing nothing, toddling around, but you know, bumbling around. And then here is the higher self. This is how many spiritual teachings were presented for a very long amount of time. And one would try to be like higher self, like I'm down here, like what the heck do I do? Where am I going? What am I doing here? You know, I'm paraphrasing. But now there's been so much of a clearing of the level of the hacked operating system, opening of the human heart, creating and living and being and focusing more from this level of unconditional love, which is a tone, which is an interdimensional currency, which is a food for higher dimensional beings that you give to them and they give to you, and that you sustain each other and one another and are in a beautiful holistic partnership with them, that now there is not this bifurcation between your lower self, and I'm mocking with my words here, like my stupid lower self, my stupid lower ego that doesn't know anything, and my higher self that is so angelic and wonderful and perfect and connected to everything. Now there is an interplay between the two. And that's also part of a cosmic maturity process that humans, the individual and the collective whole, are going through. And wonderful claiming of responsibility. And it is what I have always called becoming a full spectrum human, that you're a Roy G. Biv. You're not just a Roy, red, orange, yellow. You're not just physical, animal, intellectual. You're all of that as your body presence, and then also all of these intangible, higher dimensional layers, and boom, your connection to the divine. You're all of that. You're all the way up to white light, and you're God too. And I'll continue to say that and speak that truth and remind you of that. And then one day you'll look back on this recording and you'll be like, yes, I am God. And I remember that recording of learning all about how I'm God from that perspective. So yes, no longer this distinction between higher and lower self, just a seamless continuum of one person, one identity, one sense of self. And that is also connected to a group consciousness. So let me see if I can easily find this picture, because like I said, I'm still in the process of organizing myself. But yes, I do have this set up here for us today. Hold on a second. Now I need to do my share screen. I pull up these windows and then I know I make squinty, funny faces because I'm like, I can't see anything. Hold on a second. Share screen and go to this. This is one of these iconic sketches from my sketchbook that I come back to over and over again, because I know it's just a little pencil sketch, but it says so much that is really all about. Here you can see a larger overarching entity, like 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. I'll get a better color, but within that one entity, here's that central convergence point of where the blue chakra and the violet chakra come together. And then here are all of these other humanoid figures kind of diving forward with their heads diving towards that ball of light or towards that pearl that is inside. You go from in the direction of the arrow, you go in the direction of the arrow inward towards this person. So it is understanding that you as one individual are the end result of a multifaceted viewpoint of reality. And last week we had, not last week, 2 weeks ago, I'll go back to my face. We had a beautiful sharing after class and after the recording between some of us that were just kind of hanging out off camera, remembering and recalling that show that was called Sense8, that was on Netflix, I think, that was basically about a telepathic community of people who were biologically connected through kind of a mycelium, a mycelial network, a psychic connection. Very lovely fictional analogy that we can use to talk about what is non-fictional, ongoing, very real cosmic unfoldment in our individual and collective lives. It's a cosmic truth that when your inner eye starts to open, after having achieved the prerequisite of creating the love tone, and the love tone is it's like a floating. There's a floating surface. Sometimes when I do it, I even make my arms kind of float up like this because it kind of feels like you're in a buoyant, like floating in salt water or something like that. Like there's a buoyancy. And then on top of that, have all of these other structures that float and turn, and the interconnectedness of yourself in a multifaceted presence with all of these other beautiful presences who are reflections and refractions of your own primary state of being. And your own primary state of being is this ball of light, the totality consciousness, the infinity point, up at the top, the 0th dimension, where, remember, 0 doesn't mean nothingness. 0 means everythingness. In my world, 0 is everything. 0 is, I don't know what would be a good analogy, but it's like, it's the circle, it's the sphere, it's the thing that contains everythingness, not nothing, not worthless, worth everything. And that is where we really come from. So I've gone over the idea of your brow chakra, of the color blue and affiliated with Christ, and part of this burgeoning sense of telepathic community being a partner to the divine connection place on your body. These two things interplay and interrelate, and they're in partnership that is a beautiful, seamless, weaving together type of partnership, like the way that your heart and lungs are almost one thing that acts together because they're so much in partner. Like your lungs breathe in the air and your heart pumps the oxygen around your body, and you have to have one going to have the other one going. Your inner eye and your God connection are absolutely connected in a seamless partnership in that way. And you could think of it as God and Christ. We're getting kind of into the human religious level where there's just a lot of anthropomorphic charged language and areas for misinterpretation. So although I love and respect and love to talk about things in that way, a lot of the time you'll see me or hear me using very abstract descriptions simply because we're moving beyond that human viewpoint or anthropocentric viewpoint into a more cosmic viewpoint of being able to understand this almost like a compass needle and the house of the compass. So in a compass, like, you've got like the, like a circular thing, or sometimes an old-fashioned compass is made like this. a pool of water, still water, with something like a cork that floats on the still water, and then you put a needle across the cork, and the needle is magnetically charged, and it will turn on the surface of the water to face magnetic north. This is like from ancient times, all right? And how do you magnetize a needle? Like you can rub it back and forth fast against something and organize its molecules. I'll get to your questions. Thank you for being here. Good to see you, Angela. Thank you for being here. So the presence at the level of your inner eye and your indigo chakra is like the still water and the protective house for the incredibly delicate and sensitive equipment that is the needle of your higher dimensional connection to the divine. This is your compass needle. And what it tells you is in which direction is God? Because God or the source or this intelligence, abstract presence, it is constantly in different places. It is constantly realigning. And this presence here can keep you tuned in as to where is it, where is it, where is it, where is it? Just like I said, you're in a field of intelligence, you're in a field of information or a field of data. Just like in my room, there's all sorts of different objects and things you can look at. What do you look at? What has meaning? What has significance? And in what order? The compass that is guided by God, your God positioning system, will tell your eye what to look at. Don't look at the broom. Don't look at the pile of rags. Look at this over here, then look at this over here, then look at this over here, then look at this over here. Just like when we look at a page of written material, and most of us here are literate, and most of us have eyesight, and we learn through eyesight. Some of my audience might not, and might be just purely auditory. But when you look at a page of information, you need to read it first this, then this, then this. Like if I showed you a page from a book, you have to start at this part of the page, then read left to right. Or if you're in Chinese, start at the top and then read down. Or if you're in Hebrew, start at the right and read to the left. So you have to have your starting point and then move in the correct movements in order to ingest that information. That is what the crown chakra does. It guides you in the correct directions so that you can make sense of the intelligence and the data that is presented to you as a field around you, in the experience realm around you. This is analogous to when you were a human infant. Almost everyone who's in my audience here is an adult, even though I love it when you bring your children. Some people use these materials for homeschooling their children, and I love that so much, and I love young people so much. But mostly, my audience here are adults. And I hope that you can remember back to what it was like to be an infant and just be in a sea of sensation where there's colors, there's shapes, there's forms, you're feeling something, like you've got you've got dribble coming out of your mouth, like some places on your body are dry, some places on your body are wet, like you don't really know what's going on. And I use lightheartedness in this because like when you're an infant, you don't have an ego, you're not embarrassed, you're not like, oh, like I'm not doing things right. Like you're still learning how to have a body and there's no embarrassment. Still making sense of your senses and how to control your body or even perceive your body on a very basic level. In terms of the psychic body, it is necessary for each one of us here in chronological physical adulthood, but in infancy or toddlerhood of psychic consciousness, to be similarly unembarrassed. You are just now learning that you have anatomy. You have the anatomy of a non-physical body presence. So here, every one of you has an epidermis. You feel your skin, you feel the boundaries of your body. That's your physicality presence. You also have a non-physicality presence that is your psychic body or your light body. And you are in the process of being able to directly perceive that you have it, feel its senses, and be able to consciously control it. That is the journey towards maturation and mastery, and eventually being an ascended master where you no longer have the physicality presence, you are 100% in your coherent light body. However, that is like being adult in adulthood. Hello, welcome for everybody who's joined in. I'm just now seeing your faces. It's good to see you. What you are, most of us right now, are infants of consciousness. So infants are not even initially aware of their limbs. Like your arms and legs kind of like go all over the place. You don't really know how to connect your arms to your brain. Babies kind of like hit themselves they don't know how to like control their arms. And sometimes you see infants like they kind of like bite their hand. They're like like that's me. I'm biting me. That's me over there. Or they put their foot, their mandible on their toes. They do all of these things that are about exploring what it feels like to have a body and figuring out what are the boundaries of having a physical body. So be unembarrassed to be exploring the boundaries of what your non-physical coherent light body is as you're becoming aware of it. This has everything to do with your telepathy and your senses waking up. So just as a human infant receives all sorts of visual data from the world, they say that infants don't have good eyesight. Their eyesight is okay. They have challenges in their perception, which is making sense of everything that they see. So that's like I see like colors, lights, shapes, something is bright, something is moving. There's a big giant shape over here. There's something, like something is coming towards me. Like now I'm feeling something. Now something is going in my mouth. Like infants don't yet have a system of interpretation to understand their senses. That's what a lot of the first several years of human development are all about. As an infant of consciousness, unembarrassed by your state of beginnerhood, understand that that is what it is like when your psychic senses start to wake up. You will begin to receive information through the awakening and opening and activation of your inner eye, your eye of time, that will give you sensations. Some of those sensations might be analogous to the visual sense that we have with our physical eyes. So, you know, I'm a painter and I make all of these paintings that are like this. Initially, my senses awoke in that I perceived the world of pure light through my coherent light body, was very focused on the visual stuff. That was the first few years. And then slowly my ears came online. I started to understand that all of these circles and harmonic forms and the organizational principles of the colors, the Roy G. Biv, the rainbow, that I was seeing with my inner eye, I was also hearing as a set of tones. Hey, wait, let me turn on my piano and work with music, because this also speaks well to the upcoming vocal toning workshop. I'll tell you all about that too, but I'm excited about that. I know I haven't had my internet, so I have not been being able to connect and tell you all about it, but let's do, oh, my piano is not plugged in. But we'll sing it. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, white light. There we go, all the way back up to white light. So, or I'll play it on this analog instrument over here. I'm playing the music for you, starting with red. Here. Wait. I hope you can hear it through the mic over there. Okay? Good. All the way up the scale. So there's no right and there's no wrong in terms of your personal development stage or what you are as an infant of consciousness. And I consider myself a toddler, and I'll explain why. Toddlers are able to, so I drew it like this in the actual recorded lesson. Here's how I shared it with you. So let's say this is you as a little, let's get a color for you as a baby. Here you are, here you're a little pink baby, and babies, in my famous stick figures, babies are lying down, they're lying down in their bed, they don't really know how to walk around and do stuff yet, and they just kind of lie there, perceive things, and they don't really know about how to move their body yet, definitely don't have balance and the capacity to stand up yet. Toddlers are able to kind of stand up, even though they might not be able to walk perfectly, but they can kind of scoot around, get into all sorts of trouble. If anybody who's a parent knows this, I'm not a physical parent, but I've done a lot of babysitting and early child development work. They get into all sorts of stuff, and they can move themselves around a little bit and start to explore their environment. They have achieved some control over their bodies and some control and understanding over their senses of perception, like depth perception. How far away are things? What happens if I move over here? But they don't know everything. They don't control everything. They are only able to get around a little bit. And then let's get another color for, here is, I'm drawing a big giant adult. I'm trying to make it, very clear. That's a nice big person. That is an adult. And of course, an adult has full control over all of your muscles, like even to the point of having very, very fine motor control. If you can pick up one tiny little bead or move a paintbrush or a pen very, very, very delicately with the movements of your fingers, as opposed to a toddler where like a toddler holds their pen like this and scribbles like this, like they are still learning how to do everything. This has to do with your mind and your tendril of attention. So let's get to this. Your inner eye. I've described it and shown it many times as like this vortex shape, these vortexes that are around your head, like I showed in the image. I'll go back to the image. It's worth 1,000 words. Vortexes around your head. Vortexes around your head. That is one description that is accurate of what your inner eye is. There we go, annotation. But your inner eye is also like a tendril. And here I'm just drawing it like a spiral as a visual shorthand. Think of it as something like an elephant's trunk that reaches out, making an arrow at the end to show that it goes outward from your body. Or almost even like an insect's proboscis, but in a positive way, like a beautiful butterfly, a nice insect, something that is nice, that doesn't bite us. It's not stinky, it's not smelly, it's not poisonous, it doesn't bite. But insects have like this proboscis that they use to dip down into flowers and drink the nectar there. That is exactly what this eye of time and tendril of attention is. Attention comes from Greek, atenuos, and it means to reach out. Literally, a part of you with your higher mind is reaching out on a tendril or a sensor. This is a sensory organ, and it goes places and it touches on things. It feels things. Like if this is my attention reaching out from the middle of my head, right? And it touches on things. Let's say I touch on a flower. I'm like, oh, that's what that smells like. Let's say I touch on like, some animal dung. I'm like, oh, that's what that smells like. Don't go on there. Because just like, with your nose, whatever you are smelling, you're actually taking in tiny little amounts of that thing that you are sensing. So when you touch on something with your mind, with your attention, a person, a concept, a time, place, you're taking in a little bit of that stuff into your own mind or thought processes, different from this mind down here. This is the hacked human level, the yellow level. This is the pure level of insight. That is your divine mind, your divinely connected mind, that is nonverbal, that senses the world in a very direct, pure way. And it is your way of navigating through the time field and through all of the levels of information that are available to you there. The big salient feature that I want to emphasize to you is, as we go through levels of maturation, going from being a little baby, lying in your bed, not knowing what you're doing, with your tendril of attention wildly waving all over the place. You guys right now, not you, but people that are uncontrolled, uncultivated. I know that everyone here in this class has been taking this class for a long time, but the people that are just starting out, it's like, whoa, like my mind is over here and my mind is over here. I'm thinking this and touching on this and touching on this, like to very like grabby, touching everything, and not even recognizing. Like sometimes babies, like I said, they flail their arms around. They don't even know. They're like, I'm hitting myself. I'm hitting the wall. I'm hitting another person. They don't even know. A lot of people are flailing around with their tendril of attention. They're hitting into things. They don't even know what they're touching. They're not even aware that they have an energetic anatomy. The awakening process and the process of maturation is to be like, wait a minute, that's actually something that's coming out of me. Wait a minute, I'm actually touching on things and feeling things. Wait a minute, there's an organizational principle here. Because when I touch this over here, I feel this. Like I touch the stove, it feels hot. Like I touch this stuffed animal, it feels soft. I touch this, I know this is me. I touch this, I know this is stinky. I know that's not me. And you begin to develop levels of perception and organization to be able to make sense of what you see, sense, and feel. That's being a cosmic infant. As you begin to then develop a little bit more, you gain some more control over what your mind is thinking, where you're sending your attention. You can take moderate levels of responsibility in terms of what you touch upon, what you ingest, and what you send out. and moderate levels of empowerment in terms of reality creation. So toddlers scribble reality like this with the crayon, all over the wall sometimes too. They are not like I am in a, like toddlers versus an adult human. So I'm an adult human, and here's my paintbrush, and I paint very delicately, like one little light, one little line at a time. In my developmental process, I am still a toddler of consciousness, because an adult would be defined as an ascended master that no longer has a physical presence. So I am still here. I'm here. I just ate some scrambled eggs, drank some coffee, had a beautiful breakfast. I am still here in a physical presence sense. I still touch physical things. I still use physical televisions, computers, apparatuses to be able to talk and connect with all of you guys. And I have for 20 years. And that's actually part of why I'm here as a walk-in, to be able to be a conduit and bring these cosmic ideas in through a physicality form that would not have been able to come in otherwise. This information is there. It is part of the cosmic library. It has been difficult for humans to hear, see, sense, and have a conversation about it because of a lot of the limitations that were at the hacked human operating system level. So it has taken a lot of humans clearing out, humans leveling up, humans getting their senses, like their eyes and ears tuned and focused to be able to hear, so that humans can begin to listen to their own inner teacher. That's the goal of all of this, and that is everything that I taught about 2 weeks ago in terms of the shift of the ages, shifting the ages from the past 2,000 years of what is known as the age of Pisces, or the age of, like everyone in the calendar here, they say before Christ or after Christ, BC or AD, or before Common Era, after Common Era. And why do we start counting the calendar at the year zero, around the time of the man known as Jesus or Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and that, dropping the pebble into the time field then, and all the ripples that expanded outward from that moment. Why do we bifurcate time in that way? We have been within that age, starting with that person's presence 2,000 years ago, roughly, and then now coming out of that time. So I told you I recorded the lessons in 2013. And I was speaking about how we had just come through a cosmic doorway or a cosmic threshold. And the cosmic threshold was not exactly the year 2000 or even the 2001 A Space Odyssey. Dun, dun, boom, 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 boom. I mean, I know I get silly, but that's like from that movie, 2001 A Space Odyssey. And I'm talking about that song that was about Thus Spake Zarathustra. It was like, that movie was from the 1960s, and it was about a threshold. An obelisk comes, everything changes with the presence of that obelisk, and it was supposed to happen in 2001. And 2001 was when there was the Y2K question, like, I'm biting my nails, will everything evaporate? It's going to be Y2K, but we're joking now. That's like on your cosmic disaster card. Like, no, that was just buy one disaster, get one disaster free. It didn't actually happen. And I'm being lighthearted in all of this, of course, so you guys know where I'm coming from on my lightheartedness. But then there was 2012, December 21st, 2012, I'm biting my nails, like, what's going to happen? But we didn't have a catastrophe. Rivers of blood did not run through the streets, and cats and dogs living together. It was not mass hysteria. But what did happen was we went through many cosmic doorways and levels of consciousness refinement and transformation. So when I recorded the lessons that are up on Teachable, it was around 2013, and I reference having just gone through this cosmic doorway across a cosmic threshold. And that threshold is the exiting of the level of reality where there is an external authority figure. Again, I give great love and recognition to the teacher, Jesus, Yeshua, Christ, from 2,000 years ago, the embodiment of a man, the avatar, who was here and who remains an amazing teacher and who remains an amazing living presence within each one of us as an avatar here. The change is we don't throw that person out the window, but what we do is connect with the living presence as a teacher and a guide inside of each one of us, as opposed to listening to the dictates of an external church or an external priest or an external authority figure that tells us, here's a set of rules, here's the do's and don'ts, do this, never do this, go here, don't do this, this is right and wrong, even to the point of an inquisition. Like, we will tell you what is right and wrong. We will punish you according to our sense of what is right and wrong. Very, very different sense than the sense of following one's inner guidance, which in a lot of ways is a much higher standard. Like, you can't lie, you can't cheat. Like, Christ is within you, watching you the whole time, seeing and sensing your heart in every way. So of course there's no way, like, you know, they could hide from the Inquisition if you just have an external authority figure. It's like, yeah, sure. Like, I'm reading my book, I'm reading my prayers, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But meanwhile, like, you know, hiding out or you know, being your true self on the sly. But when you have an internal master, an internal teacher, there's no hiding out like that. And also the internal master teacher, that is Christ, that is the avatar, is so profoundly loving, so profoundly compassionate and forgiving. We'll say he, it, there. Like, what are the pronouns that we are using in modern parlance? Like, hello, like, avatar, what are your pronouns? What are your pronouns? What do we call you? Because it is it is a genderless presence, but it's not an it, but it is a they, but it was a he. Hard to say, but this being that is an incredibly loving being, that is actually a composite personality that is made up of many, many different viewpoints, just as I showed you in that pencil sketch, many, many different viewpoints all converging into this central figure that is totality. And you're one of the viewpoints. You must understand that. You and your individual presence and your individual journey makes up one shard or one facet of this much, much larger, amazing crystalline structure. And that is what Christ is, this crystalline structure of consciousness perception. But it is such an amazing, loving presence that although it might view every single one of your mistakes or whatever learning experiences, might be a better, more neutral way of looking at it, absolutely loves you through it. The most loving parent. And I know many people have issues with their parents or might still be in conflict, doing a lot of healing work on that level to say, like, you know, it's very difficult for humans to achieve that level of perfect cosmic parenthood. But this is a cosmic parent that watches you with the most blazing, fierce compassion through your levels of consciousness, infancy and toddlerhood, and helps to raise you and guide you as a parent does into cosmic adulthood, and absolutely loves you through all of your mistakes, all of your learning processes. So when I say, like, you know, there's nothing that you can hide, and it's a much more difficult challenge to have the inner teacher than to simply face like an external church or a set of rules, like follow these commandments, then you go in a good direction. It's different than that. The age of Aquarius and the age of responsibility is really about embodying your own personal divine connection, listening to God, listening to this inner eye, this eye of Christ that is telling you and watching you and guiding you through your levels of development. And it's also an incredibly loving presence in knowing, like, when you're a piano teacher, like, your student is going to make some wrong notes. That is part of life. So in your mind, in my mind, when I think I have thought some wrong thoughts, what are wrong thoughts? They're thoughts that are not necessarily emanating from the divine or bringing me in the direction of divine completion and divine connection. And I'll get into this concept also of your light body being made up of thoughts. And I've spoken at length about negative thought entities, but of course, my attention, what I want all of our attention to reach out towards and to attenuate to are not the things that are on the periphery, the negative thought forms, the gutter balls. I want to speak about and bring our attention to everything that the most perfect thought forms, the coherent light body forms, that are the avatars of perfection, that is who and what we are and what we are a part of, that is what our light bodies are actually comprised of. So right now you have a physical body that's made up of physical cells, all clustered together, your somatic body. You also have a light body. You're an infant of consciousness because you're just learning about your light body, which is made up of thoughts and thought structure. Becoming through the maturation process of refining what your body of pure thoughts is made of, by which thoughts you reach out to and attenuate to and learn from, get energy from, and also give energy to. Because a big part of this teaching is also that when you reach out with your higher faculties and your telepathy, this sensor, this tendril of telepathy. You are giving energy to something, a thought, a person, a concept, and getting energy from it. Create an energy bridge between these two things. Energy bridge. So let's say I think a thought, send out my tendril of attention to something over here that's like not a good thing that I really don't want to be energizing. And I realize I've made a mistake. And, first of all, this is cosmic parenting, like you're loved in that mistake that you've made. And then what do? Don't jump out a window. There are things you can do. What you can do is erase it away and draw that tendril back on in. That is what I do in my paintings. So my paintings are all really perfect. Like you can tell from my shirt that I'm like, okay, like I'm going to paint, I'm going to use the skinny little brush. I'm going to make this line go like this, like this, like this. Let's say there's a blob, or my elbow moved in the wrong way, or someone jiggled my table. No, don't jiggle my table while I'm painting. This is terrible. Look, I made this thing go the wrong way. What do? I actually have a little tiny razor blade or something like that, a little tiny toothpick that I use, and I take the paint that's wrong, I take it away, I take it away, I take it away, I erase it away, I fix that part, and I draw it again, I paint it again. That's how my paintings are perfect. So it's very different than, like, you guys know the abstract expressionist painter Jackson Pollock, right? Almost everybody knows him. He splattered paint all over, splatter, 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 paint all over. Very, very different level of self-expression and different approach to artistry, but that's a different way of expressing and very uncontrolled. So the Jackson Pollock splattering paint all over, that's like thinking every single different type of thought form and not necessarily taking responsibility for every expression and everything that's there. And my personal artistry in my visual art that I paint physically and in my mind and in my light body of coherent thought forms is all highly intentional. So for many, many years, I've been doing self-observation, self-cultivation, and learning to control the muscles of my mind, just like little baby infants learn to control their bodies. And you learn, like, you roll around on the floor, you learn how to turn your body over, you learn how to sit up, you learn posture, you learn how to actually sit up and not just be lying down all the time. And then you learn how to wiggle your toes, and then you learn how to kind of like get yourself up and stand up. And then the baby's first steps, I'm balancing, guys, I'm going towards mommy and daddy. These are amazing things to be able to do with our minds, which basically are about mastering the mind and meditation. That's what I talked about two weeks ago. The toddler's first steps are how to maintain the level of pure love tone. I'm moving through time, frictionless state, not thinking about the past, I'm not thinking about the future, I'm in the zone. That's beginning to take toddler's first steps. And let's say, I just thought an errant thought, I went over in this direction. Whoa, my balance is going off balance. Little babies fall down all the time. Toddlers fall down, go boom, all the time. And then you kind of like get yourself back up, dust yourself back off, realign yourself back on over. And if I have made an errant thought, like my paintbrush just went in the wrong direction, I have a blob of paint over here, I don't like the way that looks at all, in my reality painting, you wipe it away. Or in my mind, I imagine I've sent out a tendril, and that tendril went over to that thought. I'm like, I don't like that thought at all. It's not what I want to be connecting with or feeding. I literally breathe it back in, I draw it back into myself. And then I realize, what I really wanted was to think over in this direction here. And all of this is the interplay of this part of your anatomy, one's anatomy, the inner eye presence, Christ consciousness presence, being guided by God, the divine presence that shows you really want to be looking over here, thinking about this over here, because we have all of these wonderful alive thought forms that are higher dimensional presences that have already graduated from the levels of density here, that are in a partnership, a love tone currency partnership with us to bring us into their state. Just like human parents raise their children. Human parents help their little tiny helpless baby infants to be fed and clothed and have their deities changed so that they can grow up and become toddlers and then teenagers and then adults and be adults. So in order to become a coherent light form and no longer have a physicality structure and no longer be submerged in time and no longer eat scrambled eggs that you cook on a physical stove in the morning, you have cosmic parents that help in the process of refining your mind, teaching you how to send out your tendril of attention, what thoughts to touch upon, how to feed your light body with good food, not junk food thoughts, and we'll get into that too, and how to be raised into adulthood, which again, adulthood of being a coherent light form is also ascended mastery, is also no longer having a physical presence, no longer being submerged in time. Remember, I spoke about in previous lessons about you can see time as a film strip, old-fashioned film strip, one frame at a time through the linear sequence of moments of your life, or you can cut all of those moments up and put it out in one big giant grid on a table, like an editor. And you see, here's moment number one, and then here's all your whole entire life, and then here's your death over here, last moment, and that's looking at the entirety of life at once. That is that, and the many multiple edits of your life is what it's like to see time from the perspective of not being submerged within time. So right now, I am here, I am submerged within time. Although my story and my trajectory is different because I'm like a grad student. I'm like, a returning grad student or like homecoming, all right? Like I've already graduated, but I came back. That's what being a walk-in from my level is, to bring this information to share and also to rectify, make sure that cosmic parenting could happen, that it was very difficult to get signals through because of some of the challenges in this time place. So I'm like, cosmic parenting needs to happen. I'm coming in, I'm doing this, and I'm going to send out these signals from within the time world in order to change and emanate things from outside of the time world. And I'm on the journey in solidarity with all of you to exit again this level of reality where we are embedded within the flow of time. We experience linear time. We're becoming multidimensional perceivers of the perspective outside of time, which is what happens when your eye of time starts to awaken and you start to see the future. Remember, this tendril of attention touches on futures. It also touches on the past. And you could think of it as a tendril that sticks out from the front, and then it also sticks out from the back. Like, I know that's kind of linear, like the future is the front of your face, the past is the back of your face, but it's an analogy that can work for right now. You've got, tendrils all over the place. And we'll get into lasagna too, but for right now, lasagna is for later in the semester. We're just doing the basics of what it is to have a time tendril. Okay, wait, let me drink, drink, answer questions, go back to my notes, refocusing, hold on a second. Oh, Angela's asking a beautiful question. They say, does the telepathic communion include other beings in other forms and or beings on different timelines? Yes, big yes. I'm hugging you for such a wonderful question. And says specifically, i.e. animals, plants, deceased beings. Absolutely, emphasis-lutely. Telepathy is not merely between other humans or other beings that are the same shape face as you, but absolutely includes pure consciousness, consciousness that is housed in other shaped presences in other times and places. And what you're going to also start to understand is that your telepathy, your sensor, your tendril of telepathy is non-local. And what that means, it's like a quantum word, meaning it is not only limited to this time place. Your sensor of telepathy can reach out beyond time and space and touch on the far distant past, the far distant future, or any place in between. And that this is how it is part of the preparation for becoming a galactic citizen, which is also what cosmic maturity is all about. Rainbow Body has a comment here. Perhaps we can help you. She says, I find myself in need of prayer and healing. Feels as if I'm being hit with a bioweapon, open to receiving prayers and love telepathically, all chakras. So thank you for that. We have consent and the openness to receiving healing energy. So I will certainly take you up on that. This is all about what you touch on with your telepathy. Should be consensual, like it's part of being a polite cosmic presence, I should say, polite mature presence. So yes, I'm happy to send that out to you, and anyone else can participate also who would like to do that. I'll get basically into this another time, but I'll get more in depth into this another time. But basically, Being telepathic does not just simply mean like, hi, like I reached down into the depths of who you are on our first meeting. That's not being polite. Like in my house, if someone wants to come in, they knock on the front door. Am I allowed to come in? And the first thing they do is they come into my common space, which is my living room. And then if they want to come further in, then I might invite them into my bedroom, which is more of a private space. Same thing in the mind. In telepathic societies, there is common space. That would be like the courtyard outside where you meet everybody in public. There's knock, knock, knock. Can I come inside of your mind? That's private space. Can I come into the living room of your mind, which is a public private space? Can I come into the bedroom of your mind, which is a private space? And then greater levels of intimacy than that require greater levels of consent. Consent and freedom is a huge part of being a cosmically mature individual. But you can also understand if you are a cosmic infant, you might not yet understand boundaries. You might send out your tendril rather inappropriately right into someone else's mind. And I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but like a baby kind of like reaches up and grabs you and kind of like, grabs onto you in all sorts of different ways. It's like, no, baby, like you're not allowed to grab me there. You're not allowed to touch me like that. Like no adult would do that, but babies would do that. And we give allowance and recognition that they're a child, they don't understand yet. But I'm explaining to you that there are social graces that must be understood and maintained. A lot of these boundaries have to do with consent, and that has to do with being in respectful cosmic partnership. And you will learn more about this in terms of becoming a mature galactic citizen. So that's a long discussion. I'll talk more about cosmic consent later, but just know and understand that that's like, as you're waving your tendril of attention around and touching on all these things, like you might be seen as being a little grabby, a little forward. So just try to keep that in mind, but I don't want you to be too, stuck within yourself to explore. But I also want you to know, like, you should reach for things and people that are safe. You want to connect just like in childhood. You want to connect with mommy and daddy and people who love you, not with like a poisonous animal or something that's going to bite you. You understand? Connect with good, healthy things. So back to my notes. Ways to use or focus the third eye, because this is part of learning about your anatomy and learning about what you even have going on up here as it is awakening. Your energetic limb that we use to focus the third eye on a particular subject, a person, a thought form, an idea, a topic, a time, place. It is from Greek attenuos. I already told you that. It is like reaching out with your mind in order to touch on something. You already do this. Like I said, babies are already waving their legs around. They don't even know what they're doing. When you pay attention to something, like if the TV is on, you pay attention to it, your mind reaches out to it. If something loud is going on, like a siren comes down the street, your mind reaches out to it. These are like basic survival things. Like, what is that? I'm going to reach out to it. Or if you see something coming out of this corner of your eye, your mind reaches out to it. What is that thing? You look at it. Whatever we focus our attention on is what we are thinking about. Think about that. As you are self-observing throughout your day, the thoughts that you are experiencing within your mind are the things that you are focusing your attention on. Your attention is a tendril that reaches out to other things, and it also reaches back into your own mind. Like a loop. I reach out and I reach back into myself, and I think about this, and I think about this, and I touch on myself, and I touch on myself, and I touch on myself, and I think about this. Then I also reach out and I touch on that out there, and I touch on that out there, and the inside and the outside are actually communicative surfaces that are actually interrelated. So this becomes one big giant journey of reaching out and touching and sensing things, and then boundaries start to be redefined. Hold on a moment. When you are reaching out, you are building a bridge of energy between whatever you are and what you are reaching out towards. You could think of it as a finger of energy, because these are our sensors, our long distance sensors, reaching out and touching on something. Keep in mind that when you are touching upon a dark concept with your mind's eye or your attention, you are not only lending energy to it, you are building bridges between you and it. That's why in my classes, I am so conscientious about, yes, we talk about the pooties, we talk about the gutter balls. I use lighthearted terms to talk about them instead of saying something like the evil demons of hell, because that's all very loaded language. However, I have to give equal, if not greater, verbal time and attention time to the things that we actually wish to be touching on with our minds. That's the ascended masters, the avatars, the perfect coherent thought form beings that are us in the future, that are our cosmic parents, who are guides for us in terms of our maturity process, and who are helping us to become organized and intelligent on greater and greater levels, to the point that we also become cosmic adults. That's who you really want to touch on with your mind. You want to build bridges between you and those beings I just described. You want to think about them during your day. So that's why I say it is very beautiful if a person has a faith, if they are, even if they are biblical literalist in terms of, understanding religion in a way that's highly anthropocentric, there's still a great value in focusing your daily thought forms on the idea of a master, someone who has achieved divine perfection, a great artist of the mind, thinking about them and building a bridge of consciousness between you and them as a way of feeding your thoughts into them and getting thought energy from them. And that back and forth is what love is. That is the real definition of cosmic love. Like, you give me $10, I give $10 back to you. That is love. $10 of energy, $10 of currency. So with your mind, you have the capacity to think about like an iconic avatar, someone like Jesus or Buddha, or even let's say gurus of the Sikh tradition, or teachers from an oral tradition who never had a book written about them, Native Americans. There are many different beings that you can think about throughout your day and connect your mind with that thought form, as opposed to thinking about everything that's evil, wrong, bad, sacrifices that are made, destructive things that are made. And of course, I've spoken at length about all of those things. I feel like there's a value in knowing about them. However, I would like for 90% of your thought bridges to be bridged with where you want to be going, not the cautionary tales of the things that you have to watch out for. So in the forest, there are dangerous creatures. Don't watch out for that. That's a poisonous mushroom. Don't fall over that cliff. Don't touch that spiky plant. You will die. You will die. You will die. You will die. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Right? Cosmic parenting. But then here are all of the beautiful flowers that I want you to smell. Here's all of the beautiful fruits that I want you to eat. Here are all of the beautiful plants that are amazing, or animals that are amazing to interact with. 90% of what is there is amazing, and what I want you to be focusing on, not the smaller amount of things that we recognize as being distortions or unintentional side consequences of things that are out there. And the side consequences are basically things that need to be healed, which is what I spoke about at length 2 weeks ago. This has everything to do with mastering the mind and mastering attention. And you can also understand in terms of being a cosmic manifester, the more that you control what your tendril of attention is reaching out to and touching upon. I'm touching on this positive thing. I'm going to feed this. I'm going to feed this, 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 and this. And look at that. I'm feeding a positive reality structure. And all of this, for lack of a better word, crapola, all this crapola, I'm not touching on that. I'm not feeding it. I'm not ignoring it. I'm aware of it. I'm consciously avoiding it. Don't touch these spikes. You will die. Don't touch them. They will kill you. Touching this, this, and this, and this, and this. Hooray, we broke the tape. Hooray! Because humanity has learned to a certain level, don't touch on all of this stuff over here. Become a conscious manifester. Heal from your internal traumas. Heal your ancestral traumas. Begin to speak in certain thought patterns, speak in certain verbal patterns and thought patterns, moving in better emotional and consciousness directions as an individual and as a collective. Stop speaking your fears into reality. Start creating in love, imagining the true reality you would like to experience. And in this way, feeding and helping to embroider into being the more positive longevity reality that we all wish to experience. Let me read this to you. I'm going to send you my notes because I feel like that's incredibly helpful. This is in bold and underlined. So let me read this for you. In order to become a fully fledged galactic citizen in hyperspace, the realm of pure time and energy, where what you are thinking and emanating from your mind is going to be created. Direct reality manifestation creation zone. You need to learn to consciously control the attention and the limb of the true creator's mind. That's why we're here in the learning zone, in whatever you would call it, the children's nursery, place where you grow up and come to maturity. It is not, when humans were limited, quarantined, or stuck in the past, it was not punishment. It's not like you are bad and wrong, like go to your room, like I don't want to hear from you. It's not like that at all. It's more like that. It's more like this. You are full of fear, out of control, and a little bit dangerous in the terms of, if you directly created reality right now, you would be creating out of your past trauma, fear, all of the things that basically happened because humanity has been traumatized by taking us from our divine, godlike, immortal forms and everything that made us into small, mortal, vulnerable food eaters that make scrambled eggs on a stove in the morning and are in the process of re-achieving galactic maturity. All right. We've been through some trauma, and that those have been internalized on deep levels, that then if we were simply like, open up the floodgates and let humans just create with your minds, you know what would happen? Recreating all the traumas of the past. Got to heal the traumas so that you don't just simply re-emanate them. Or another way of saying it is, the world is like a dream, and it is becoming a lucid dream, in that we are aware of our effect and the fact that we're dreaming it and emanating it. But a lucid dream can also be somewhat out of your control. If you're like, I went to the circus when I was 6 and something scared me and now I'm afraid of clowns. And in your lucid dream, like, it's all scary clowns, bad clowns, scary clowns, running away from scary clowns. Actually, clowns are like one of the greatest things that our childhood fears. Like, a lot of people really hate clowns, and they are kind of scary. But all of that being said, in lightheartedness, in order to not emanate nothing but bad, scary clowns or whatever is your childhood fear, it's necessary to heal the bad thing that happened when you went to the circus when you were 6, and then clowns just become something silly, just a clown. And that's just like in the Harry Potter movies, the spell ridiculous, and you wave your magic wand and you point at your fear, and it just becomes this exaggerated, ridiculous thing, and you're able to approach it more and to understand where it came from, why you're afraid of it, and then it just becomes something that is a manageable, silly, ridiculous thing. If we do not take care of our initial primary traumas and our fears that emanate from there, then we emanate them not endlessly, but until we press stop on the reality generation button, stop generating those fears. And then the second part is draw back in all of those tendrils. If you sent out thought forms that were all about the stuff I'm afraid of, the scary clowns, that's all tendrils of thought, like coming out of your head, like spaghetti yarn. Draw them back in with your breath. Draw them back in, and then you've got that energy currency back inside of you. The thought forms are no longer running around. You no longer are giving birth to them and emanating them and feeding them with your emotional tendencies. And now you have that energy currency, your money, to be able to spend on much better thought forms. Infants of the mind are hardly even aware of their own mind emanations, much less in control of them. Moderate maturity and growth means learning about your anatomy and you get some control. So that's like beginning to go from being an infant into being a toddler. You have to start asking yourself, what do I wish to focus my attention on? Throughout your day, if you can, ask yourself that question many times a day and continually refocus your attention on thoughts of love. That's where you want to be going in the direction of, away from the thoughts of fear, not scary clowns, but towards thoughts of love. There are many opportunities to think about thoughts of fear. This is why I do minimal ingestion of the media and have for a long time. Although I'm aware of current events, I don't turn on the news every day and be like, biting my nails. Which scary clowns am I going to emanate today? This fear, this fear, this fear. It's almost all fear. It's almost all negative stuff. When you turn on the news, very little of it is like, here's a story of a miracle, like, or here's something hugely positive that happened. You know, they call those like feel-good stories, fluff. That feel-good fluff, I say it with irony in my voice. That's what you actually want to be thinking about and learning about. So I recorded these lessons, like 9 years ago, before social media was even such a presence. Now what I do is I'm connected with beautiful people on social media. So when I look through my Facebook or something like that, messages of positivity come up. People talk about their amazing dreams that they've experienced, or something good or a healing that they did in their life, or something that they're aligning with. And that's what I choose. That is my news of the day, not the overall pablum that comes to us from government or corporate propaganda telling us what to be afraid of. Instead, I touch my tendrils of attention on the lives of real people who are on very positive journeys and read the things that they are writing about. That is positive to do. Yeah, I don't read about, and I don't do anything that's like true crime, murder mysteries, stories about psychopaths and things like that. Like, I don't need to focus my mind on that. That is focusing on the scary clowns of the past. Anything from whatever, Charles Manson, Genghis Khan, crazy maniacs. I don't need to focus on that, although I'm certainly aware of murderous maniacs that have existed across human history. But we get to make a choice, a curatorial choice about what we use our attention to focus upon, connect on, and feed. I do a lot of connecting on the lives of great artists because that's what I'm interested in. I connect with musicians that I love, Mozart, David Bowie, John Coltrane, Jimi Hendrix, and I connect with them by placing the tendril of my attention on their music. Every morning I wake up, I'm making my coffee, I put on awesome music, and I connect my tendril of attention to that musician. And this is a tendril that goes across time and space. Jimi Hendrix is not in our physical reality anymore. I wish he were. Wouldn't that be amazing? However, he is not here, but his music is here. And I connect to his energy presence across time and space. And you can also do that with, like I said, one morning I woke up and I read about the gurus of the Sikh tradition. And I felt like I was having coffee breakfast, connecting my mind with them, with learning about them. You can do that. You can consciously curate your thoughts and connect with positive, artistic, spiritual, masterful teachers, presences, people who are inspiring to you. And those are the thought forms you want to be eating and ingesting. That's health food for your coherent light body. I'm going to say attention is similar to an elephant's trunk. It's a sensor sensing reality. I spoke about this 2 weeks ago. You can say no thank you or not interested to thought forms that come up. So sometimes we are consciously choosing, like, no, I don't want to watch that stupid thing on the TV or put my mind on that. Sometimes they get in your face. Remember I did that one? I'm in your face, I'm in your face, I'm in your face, I'm in your face. Because they're like, I want to be healed, I want to be healed, I want to be healed, I want to be healed. And when negative thought forms or unhealthy ideas do that to you, you can be like, no, thank you. Not interested. Don't want to eat any of that junk food. And that's pretty much me in the convenience store. I'm just here paying for my gas in my car. Like, no, none of this food is food for me. No, I don't want your chips. I don't want your genetically modified food. I don't want your chocolate. None of that is food for me. Because that food in the physical body makes your physical body get out of shape and distorted and different than the way it's supposed to be, not divine factory settings. And those thought forms that are thought forms of judgment of self and others, negativity, constantly being down, constantly being critical, like that's wrong, that guy's wrong, that guy's bad, that is bad, that is bad, that is bad, wrong. If those are the only thoughts that you eat, that's like eating like the Doritos all the time. It is not nourishing food for the soul. And I say no thank you to those thoughts. Although I am aware that there are things that are not desirable in the world, the thoughts of judgment and constant criticism, to me, is not good food for my soul or for my mind. So I say a lot of no thank yous, and also reality structures. Like, let's say there's a story on the news. Everyone is gonna die. Echo, in giant headlines. And of course, like, there's a ton of sensationalism in the world. When I see something like that, I say no thank you to unwanted reality structures. I'm like, oh, I actually don't want to be a part of a future timeline where everybody dies. So I'm not going to place my attention on that. I'm not going to build a bridge between myself and that reality structure. I'm not going to feed into it. And if I notice that my mind is reaching out to there, because there's also the power of the collective. that you might just notice, like, I'm thinking these thoughts, I'm a part of everything, I'm noticing what everyone is thinking about, I'm thinking in those directions. Suck it back in, suck your energy tendril back in, draw it back into yourself, or you could think of it like a fishing line where you reel your energy back in, whatever analogy works for you. Take your energy back from that. That's just like when I make a wrong thing in my painting and I erase it. Wrong direction, erase that away, take personal responsibility for that, draw it back into my mind, and then start again. So of course it's difficult to do this during a musical performance, but during my practice sessions, I'm like, play, 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 play. Oops, that was completely wrong. Rewind back to that part in the song, and now let me begin that part, that phrase again. It actually should go da 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 da, and now we've got it right. And you're like, let me retrain my fingers to play that the way it's supposed to be. And again, not necessarily perfect for a performance, but perfect for practice. We are in this realm here where we are toddlers and infants learning how to control our minds, not yet on the stage of the great symphony. So take the burden off of your shoulders, take the boulders off of your shoulders, because otherwise it can be a lot to be like, oh my God, perfect, I have to be perfect, I have to be perfect. No, don't have to be perfect yet, because you still have a physical body. Still here, still have a physical body, still working on divine perfection. So it is possible to rewind your mind, go back to the moment where you made the mistake, play again, play the phrase correctly, and then move on. And that's also part of the learning process. This is also like posture correction throughout the day. So during the day, I do posture check. If you have a tendency to roll your shoulders forward, you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing this thing. Let me relax my stomach muscles and put my shoulders back. And whatever is your thing, or you tend to be down on one side, be like, wait, 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 let me put that side back. Whatever is your thing that you do with your mind, recorrect your mental posture, where you're like, am I thinking those negative thoughts? Am I thinking those harmful thoughts? Am I thinking those fear-based thoughts? Oops, I'm in the wrong posture. Let me go back to my corrected posture. And the more that you do these posture corrections throughout the day, then the more that becomes the natural state of your being, where it's like, yes, I naturally sit like this. This is comfortable to me. However, we've been in a very twisted, distorted world for a long time, where it might have been normal to be down on one side or imbalanced or shoulders hunched over or whatever it is. So initially it takes some willpower and conscious control to get back into good mental posture, good attention posture, focusing on love as compassion and acceptance and radical forgiveness of self and others. I know these are like high ideals. You can do it. I believe in you. That's another big thing. Belief in yourself. Self-doubt is something that you don't want to touch on. Don't feed your thoughts of self-doubt. Draw that energy back in and feed your mind with thoughts of believing in yourself and believing in others. Believe in the greatness and the potential of yourself as a human and the other humans or animals or organisms around you. Wait, let me drink. Your pineal gland as an emanator of realities. Pineal gland, tendril of attention, inner eye of time, Christ presence within, emanator of reality. It is your imagination. It is your reality projector, like a film projector. Project light out of your forehead and it becomes the reality world around you. And if you believe in your own greatness and the potential greatness of other beings, of other humans, that is the reality you project. If you believe in the capacity to overcome, grow, move in positive directions, make a better world, that's a big one. That is what you project. As we are achieving maturity and claiming our galactic citizenship, we must master our mind. So much of the work that humans have done since I first recorded these lessons over the past 9 years or so is about preparation for entering into, galactic citizenship, being able to really connect effectively with all of the other intelligences and presences and organisms that are out there, up there, beyond, in the beyond the levels of the limitation of space and time, as humans have been submerged in space and time. And again, me, Aurora, my Aurora collective, and who I am as a presence, that is a waveform, before beyond coming into this physical human earth body in 2001, I live in a place that is outside of space and time, but still affected by space and time and affecting space and time. I was not submerged. I became submerged. I chose, instead of saying volunteered, because that just has some bad connotations to it, but I made a decision, I made a choice, and came to be submerged here for purposeful reasons in terms of achieving certain possibilities that would not have been possible if I had not chosen to be resubmerged into this time and place. So galactic citizenship, I'm a galactic citizen, and I'm here submerged, and I'm here bringing these cosmic truths and this level of guidance from the embodiment point of view to the people that are also here submerged and embodied, so that greater levels of consciousness rising, leveling up can happen. And I applaud, because so much of that has been happening, that now there are much greater levels of connectivity between individual Earth humans, or this level of density humans, and the culture that is here. The necessary for claiming galactic citizenship need to master where one is focusing one's mind and attention, and which realities you're emanating out as both individuals and a collective. And again, there were many times over the past 20 years since I've been here as a walk-in that humanity was like, panic, hysteria, Y2K, 2012, disaster, 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 the disaster punch card. You've already gotten your free cup of coffee on all of your disaster punch cards here. Like, you've gotten 10, you got one free. You're still here. You're past all of the nodes where, like, yep, you could have gone over a cliff there, and you could have died horribly there. And you could have all been swallowed in a volcano there. And you could have had the tidal wave there. And you could have had a meteorite smash into your planet there. None of those things happened. And the reason why they didn't happen, or the reason why they happened on a parallel or alternate timeline that is somewhere over there on the periphery, is because, hooray, I applaud you, humanity made great efforts at personal self-cultivation, personal healing, healing on a collective level, and turning the ship of consciousness like a big, giant ocean-going vessel that can't just go at 90-degree angles. Human society and the human collective mind has to slowly turn and change and shift. You've all been a part of that. Your individual journeys, your individual healing, your ancestral healing, the work that you have done in your communities, and the thought forms that you have emanated outward have had a profound impact on reality structure, and you have largely avoided the very worst catastrophes that could have happened. So I applaud you and give you great recognition and great encouragement, because, like, when you do well on your piano, your teacher should be like, you did beautifully, you played that part beautifully, look at that. Like, you really are moving upward in your ability to express the symphony of life. Symphony of life is staying alive. I will not sing the song by the Bee Gees, because sometimes I'm silly and I do, but you want to stay alive by playing the right notes on the piano. You are playing the right notes on the piano and moving as a collective away from catastrophe and towards continued life. This is part of preparation for meeting all of these amazing galactic civilizations. So Earth realm is no longer in this thought quarantine. You're starting to get connectivity, whatever we would call it, Wi-Fi signal or connectivity to the rest of the world that's out there, that they actually have been wanting to talk with you all for a very long amount of time. But again, a ton of healing needed to happen. A ton of trauma processing needed to happen. A ton of inner self-cultivation and leveling up all needed to happen. Yes, this is what I have written in my notes. Earth was in this thought quarantine due to negative thoughts, low signal levels, just like caca poo poo, like, this doesn't make sense, like blah, 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 you know, like just nonsense coming out of people's minds. And so low intelligence, negative stuff, and things that are less than love. The alternative is what humans have been doing, broadcasting possible reality structures of peace, planetary harmony, perfect health, and health for the entire planetary body. Earth is like a body. And instead of thinking about all the ways in which the body could die, and having the body die, like I said, impending meteorites, rivers of blood, lava, tidal waves, all those catastrophes. Everyone was very stuck on all of those things for a long amount of time. Those things have not been manifested. And instead, what's happening is environmental healing, people trying to find ways to rectify environmental degradation, people finding ways to heal from chronic diseases. Do you understand? Like many people, instead of getting some kind of diagnosis, like that's it, you're going to die in 5 years, they changed their diet, they changed their exercise, they got sound healing or a Rife machine or some amazing thing happened in their life, and or basically frequency medicine, and they changed their thoughts and their emotions, and they have outlived their prognoses or prognoses. Melissa has a very relevant comment. They say, this comes back to we create our collective reality, and to be careful about what spices of thought you add to the collective soup. Big, I validate what you're saying. Thank you for your beautiful comment and for your personal addition of positive flavors and positive nutrients to the collective soup. That's what this is really about. When you're telepathic, you're starting to understand. I say this all the time. You are not just swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. You are part of a larger ocean of consciousness, and is the beginning of taking cosmic responsibility for being connected to that ocean. And this is, as I say in the notes, the contrast between human culture of even 9 years ago and human culture of this moment now, 2022. A lot of leveling up, a lot of personal responsibility, and people write all sorts of things in their Instagrams and their Facebooks about recognizing that they are manifesting their own reality, taking personal responsibility, direct co-creation of the dream. And co-creation, I'm very big about this. You're in divine partnership, guided by God, your GPS, God positioning system, and you are also emanating your reality structure. So it is divine partnership, listening to the great symphony, and you are also playing those notes. But the whole idea of these inspirational viewpoints that many people are sharing is saying there's now a mass movement towards taking personal responsibility and creating consciously higher levels of experience and better qualities of experience. Okay, so yes, being able to access your higher faculties, it means gaining more responsibility and recognizing self as mini creator who is emanating your own life experience. You as self are a mini creator, a miniature version of God, the divine presence, all right? So you're a fractal, tiny, smaller version of the larger thing that has been emanating for a long time. Combined emanations of all of us being woven together into a tapestry of consensual reality. You're getting it? What all of our thoughts are creating this world around us. And taking responsibility means that human culture is worthy of having that limitation sense removed and being able to connect more effectively beyond Earth and beyond what we would call 3D culture, and to touch people beyond this time and place on the surface of Earth. Now we're getting into it, because when you go beyond the limitations of your little encapsulation bubble, what happens is you touch people everywhere and every when. This is not just like, oh, now that limitation is removed, we can fly from here to the moon or from here to Venus or something like that. No, it means you can fly from here to 1,000,000 years ago, or from here to 1,000,000 years into the future, or from this level of dimensionality into a completely different level of dimensionality. Because this tendril of attention is not just something that I can use, let's say, to reach across town, smell a flower across town, or reach into the mind of someone who exists here in this time and place. I can reach into a flower that existed 10,000 years ago and smell a flower from 10,000 years ago. I can reach into the mind of someone who will exist in 10,000 years. And so much of understanding and interacting on the level of galactic citizenship is to really comprehend and embody the truth that humans have come from other star places and then been coalesced here as this level of culture. And humans will change and evolve and go into other places. What you would perceive as being extraterrestrial or non-terrestrial, your heritage is extraterrestrial, non-terrestrial. You are presently terrestrial. Then you will be extraterrestrial again as you evolve, change, and grow over an uncountable number of years. It's almost beyond comprehension. And when you talk with these, you reach out with your tendril of attention in touch with these beings that you see as galactic beings that you think are aliens or extraterrestrials. They are yourselves in the future, and they are yourselves in the past. And you begin to understand, I've told you this on many levels, unity consciousness. You are bouncing off of yourself, coming from a variety of different vectors, being emanated and re-emanated again in time loops, learning time lessons, continually taking responsibility for what you have done and what you will do, continually trying to heal yourself and fix and rectify the poorly painted areas of the painting that you messed up on at another time, and draw back in those thought forms that were not intentional emanations, the rectifications of all of your mistakes, and planting positive seeds for the future. And that is really why I am here, submerged in time, a rectification dance and planting seeds for not the future, but a timeless time that still needs to be helped into being and cared for. That coming here and doing this work here now, doing my lasagna dance, speaking with my words in these way, making these paintings and sharing these concepts, emanates outward in all directions. A change in the energy field of events and time that benefits consciousness that is even transcended being submerged in time. It's a mass healing that goes on throughout all of these levels of dimensionality. Wait, let me drink. The limb of attention is not limited in space and time. Telepathy is not limited to space and time. You can reach out with your mind and speak to beings who exist in a radically different space without having to wait any amount of time. This is different than the concept of the speed of light. So I've spoken about Einstein. He gave a lot of leveling up in terms of quantum consciousness, the understanding of collapsing waveforms of potentiality by observership. These are what the quantum scientists of the early 1900s gave to human culture. But Einstein and those scientists also gave a limitation that is part of the encapsulation of your world that is now being lifted, the sense of the limits of the speed of light. But wait, how, if I live over here, if Earth is over here, and then some other star system is over here, and I have to send a signal across the vast reaches of space and time, it's going to take 93 million years in order for my radio signal to be able to get to this guy over here. Clearly, by the time I say hello and he gets my signal, I will be dead. And then by the time he sends the radio signal back, then that's another 93 million years, and then we'll get the signal and everyone will be like, this has no relevance. We don't even know what this is about. If all you believe in is the speed of light. However, if you begin to understand that your tendril of attention transcends the speed of light, and that you're able to reach through multiple layers of reality, like imagine these are stacked up layers of reality fabric, and the tendril of your attention is able to sew like a needle, going with thread, going through all of these different layers of reality, you are able to talk directly to that person that might be 93 million miles away or billions of miles away, without having to fly in a Planck metal spaceship in a linear time vector and be able to get there. You begin to become able to speak with your mind to and with beings that are not present in terms of space and time. Part of the quarantine was these limitations. What you are doing is basically traveling through a non-physical reality. Your tendril of attention is a non-physical energy structure, and it is not limited to the limits of what physicality world structures do. It makes it possible for your time, for your attention and your consciousness to experience time differently and send information and receive information in a different form than physical structures moving through time. Like, here's my pen is moving through time, my pen is moving through space. Your tendril of attention doesn't move through time and space like my pen moves through time and space. And that's why my tendril of attention can touch on Jimi Hendrix, no matter where his consciousness is. It's not here now around the block from me, somewhere else, but I can touch on it with him or another great teacher from hundreds or thousands of years ago, or civilizations that will exist in the far distant future, many of whom are actually your progeny, beings that you will give birth to and move, who you will evolve into eventually. all right, including coherent light forms. Can touch on beings from millions of years ago or millions of years in the future. You can stretch your mind and your perception and your sense of what is possible when I tell you that. Receiving information also changes the past and the future. So just like if you could reach back in time and tell your future self, like, buy Bitcoin, then you would know, like, oh, if I spend $1 here, then I'll have $1 million here. That's just a lighthearted example. I'm not telling anyone to buy Bitcoin. And yes, my Insta account was hacked recently. And no, those Bitcoin posts were not from me. So they all were erased. But if anybody was wondering, in a very lighthearted way, I'm telling you, don't buy Bitcoin. That was not me saying that. Someone else hacked my thing. But you know that if you had your knowledge, present wisdom, you could go back in time, you could know whatever ways of helping your journey or enriching yourself. And you also know that that would change the trajectory of your life. Well, now we're talking about spiritual treasure, consciousness treasure, attention treasure, the type of, when I talk about cosmic parenting, what would great masters and great teachers give to you in terms of spiritual treasure and golden wisdom that is untarnishable? Not wisdom such as buy Bitcoin, but they would tell you what cosmic parents would tell you so that you would know the exact things you would need to know in order to transcend the limitations that you're presently in, heal from all of your traumas and the things that have held you back, and to become your greatness, to become beings of pure light, to become beings of pure love, who are 100% divinely connected and divinely guided, and who always play every single right note on the piano in the symphony of life. That's spiritual treasure beyond cryptocurrency or beyond stocks or bonds or diamonds or something like that. So that is what really is happening. Ascended masters from the future or yourselves, whom you will evolve into, are reaching their own time tendrils into this time and talking with us and affecting us in the most wonderful ways. And it is still a partnership because it's consensual. We have to choose. I'm going to tune into those broadcasts. I'm going to touch on those thought forms and think those thoughts and be transformed and guided in my life in that way, not focusing on all the bad things that can possibly happen that they talk about on the news. Activating your higher faculties means accessing knowledge and wisdom of living creatures over a vast era of time. Creatures is in quotes, I should say organisms, because there have been many wonderful teachers who are non-human, and they might look like a dolphin. I had an amazing dream that looked like a dolphin person that was just so uplifting. And I was like, wow, that's an amazing teacher that came to me in different form other than a human form, or a ball of light, or a gaseous being, or a mineral creature, a crystalline structure. I mean, there are all these different ways that consciousness can be housed and can be a wisdom teacher for us beyond the anthropocentric or human-faced form. I call this the time phone, all right? So this is your tendril of awareness. It's your time phone, and you can pick it up and you can call any when, and you can use it to call up all sorts of different people that have lived in all sorts of different times and places. Let's say there was a time when everybody was like a mushroom person. That's kind of like what ancient Lemuria was like. You can call ancient Lemuria on the time phone, and you might think that you're talking to mushroom people because they look different than you, but that is actually whom you were in another level of your development, concurrent level of your development. Similarly, you can call on the time phone whom you will be in 60 billion years of personal development. Might be unrecognizable to your present anthropocentric form, but it is still you, and it is still a loving presence. The fabric of the cosmos is woven of many layers, many threads weaving between the layers, and the threads of awareness are communications, consciousness interweaving between the layers. And your pineal gland is the aperture through which you can perceive many different thoughts from many different beings. Pineal gland as being this projector of reality, as being this center point. Go back to this drawing very briefly here. Convergence point, of all these different beings here. They're shaped like humans with heads and feet, but they could be mushroom people, dolphin people, gaseous people, crystalline structures. Each thought has an impact on you and on your trajectory through reality. That's big, whether it's a positive or a negative thought. Some thoughts bring us closer to God or more in alignment with that central core timeline. Some thoughts squash you over to the side, make you move towards the membrane of death. The thoughts you send out between time layers have a reciprocal effect on layers. If I'm thinking about Jimi Hendrix, I'm affecting him. He is affecting me. I'm connecting to his music. We are affecting one another. That's huge. Like I'm an artist and I always try to make things that are eternal. Like I want to make a song that's going to affect people. It's going to touch your heart. It's going to be there for a long time, even if I'm not physically there. Whatever you are and whatever you do in your life, know that it has a profound experience. It resonates. Whatever you do, you're an artist of reality and your artwork resonates and it affects the people that connect with who you are and what you did later. And it could be planting a garden. I planted this garden, I planted this tree, and then someone else ate fruit off of this tree and they're thinking of me and they're connected to my actions. It becomes an incredibly beautiful, complex, interwoven tapestry. And if you do it right, it's an uplifting tapestry of goodness and love that is bringing everybody who is a part of the symphony continually into higher and higher and higher levels of personal development. So reciprocal time layers, and then a call on the time phone from the far future or the distant past containing information can change your life clearly in terms of what you should invest in, but more so maybe who you should love, or maybe just like, you know, go to that coffee shop on that day. Like you will meet someone important, you will do something important, or any of these types of life guidance things, or even don't go to that coffee shop on that day. Something negative will happen to you, or do this in your life process. Don't do this in your life process. Any of these things, any of these good guidances. You can speak to beings from the future that might be defined as extraterrestrials, because humanity will evolve from this planet and become the extraterrestrial culture. And we already emanate from a non-terrestrial origin. And this is a new way of thinking about time, communication, and who you can speak with. And also, this is what galactic citizenship and galactic, interactive culture is all about. If you build this bridge of communication, you are affecting them as much as they are affecting you. Really big and huge. Now you understand why you would want to be purged of trauma and negative emotions and fear before you start to interact with these other levels of selfhood. It becomes a co-creative partnership between beings and groups of beings. You as an individual, you as human collective, begin to be in a co-creative partnership with individual dolphin people and the entire pod of dolphin people or crystalline people or whomever is out there that you're connecting with. A thought emanated from one time place and you sense it here now. You're sensing from another part of yourself, just as a signal connects from your toe to your brain. So let's use the dolphin people as an example, that they might send out a signal that we might perceive here. We might be like the toe. I'm far away in time and space from where they are and what they're emanating, but I'm feeling it and it's affecting me and I'm sending it back to them. We're part of a larger neurology. Faces look different, cell specialization, but we're part of a larger body. My brain is a different cell than my big toe is a type of different somatic cell specialization, but part of the same holistic whole, part of the same body. You begin to realize that you're part of a much larger living being that is the time field itself. And much of my motivation for coming here into this time phase now in rectification is not only about fixing up my own mistakes or perceived mistakes of the past, but a general caring for and caretakership for the totality state that is the time field. And remember this, you don't just have to be picking up your own dirty laundry, like, oh, those are my dirty socks that I left there 3 lifetimes ago. It's not just about that. Sometimes you're picking up dirty socks because you know it's going to benefit the entire time field. Like, that's not my dirty laundry, but I'm going to do it because I'm the entirety. And by doing that, I benefit by the whole thing getting healthier and better. That's really a much more accurate portrayal of why I am here in this level of reality right now, eating my scrambled eggs. Thank you for that recognition, Rainbow Body says, feeling it. Great teachings, Aurora. Thank you very much. I want to talk now, we've talked a lot about the tendril of awareness and the Christ chakra, the indigo, brow chakra. Let's talk about violet, the crown chakra. I know I've already done 2 hours. I'm going over time a little bit. We're going into OT, everyone, just as we did 2 weeks ago, because these are big topics, all right? So I'm not insulted if anybody has commitments and if they need to go. I will keep going. It is perpendicular at a 90-degree angle. The gyro stabilizing effect, much like a helicopter that has a propeller and rotors. The leap of the 90-degree consciousness between dimensions. The compass needle and the housing of the compass. I've already said all these things to you. The crown is the compass needle and it senses where is God. And God is the source of higher intelligence. It is the source of all energy. It is the guiding principle. One moment, please. Apologies, and you all got to hear Cheeky over there. Look, she's wearing her little rainbow sweater today because it's a little chilly where we are. Okay. Oh, Dahlia, Delilah, sorry, I did not have your name right. Delilah says, it's been a great lesson so far. Thank you so much. And yes, Cheeky, you are getting a ton of love on your little, yeah. Okay, but quiet down. Thank you. I know, she's getting saucy. She loves being the center of attention. Back to it, everyone, the crown chakra. The crown as the source of higher intelligence, the source of all energy, the guiding principle, and also the destination for consciousness when it is refined. Remember, I spoke about, like, if you eat physical food, like I'm eating my sandwich, I'm eating my delicious, apples or whatever it is, and it goes into the physicality body, and then it is refined upward into a sense of being pure energy, into a pure thought form that we can then emanate outward back to the sun, the source of the energy that gave us the apples or the bread or whatever it is that we eat. And that is the journey of our physical food. That is also the journey of our consciousness, that we have come here in coalesced into physicality matter, and that we are now on this refinery process of coming all the way back up to the greatest level of refinement in the human octave, which is this violet chakra, where we then go back to white light. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, back to white light. And that also is just the beginning of the next octave, where once we go up to here, that's the beginning plateau of the next journey, even higher, because it is in almost endless or continual levels and levels and levels of refinement, and that this is a beautiful eternal journey. So the vulnerability, connecting my brain to my mouth. There is a vulnerability in the human development level when we have raised our energy up to the level of the brow, to Christhood, and not yet engaged the God positioning system, in that you can send out this tendril of attention, reach across time, talk with Jimi Hendrix or people from a long time ago or people from the great far distant future, and yet are not yet completely guided by God and the great symphony composer conductor telling you exactly what to do. So there is some caution there in the sense of keep going on the journey of your personal development. Be sure to be focused on the crown and the divine connection as a guiding principle, because otherwise just accessing all of the information of the library, like there have been many esoteric schools and many occult practitioners throughout the ages who found these like secrets of immortality and, secrets of whatever you would call it, all sorts of different powerful empowerments. And it takes a great deal of wisdom to know how to apply these wonderful, powerful empowerments, how to apply these superpowers, how to use them in a good way that benefits the entirety. Like when I talk about the entire genetic sweater, the entire living time field, everything, all organisms across time, it's an incredible large symphony. So it does take some very good guidance to be able to know what to play, when to play, and how to do things properly. And that is really the goal. So in your own personal development, as your inner eye starts to awaken, as you start to send out your tendril of attention, please keep in mind that it's essential to also be going towards the guidance of and cultivating your connection to God presence, so that you know what you're doing, even though we are here in the playpen where you get to make rough sketches, but be sure to connect with pure divinity. Connecting to God is all about achieving galactic citizenship, where every single one of your thoughts is an intentional thought. And that is mastery of the mind. So mastery of the mind is about you becoming an ascended master, transcending physicality, moving into a non-physical state of pure coherent light body form. And it is also about achieving galactic citizenship, or a sense of maturity in the larger cosmic context of not only things that are far away from our planet, but also far away in terms of time or dimensionality. Mastering your mind in order to achieve levels of higher responsibility in the higher realms, maturity and galactic citizenship. Humanity is coming into greater levels of freedom and connection to the whole, because the thought collective here has leveled up and is no longer emanating from a place of fear. That's all that positive stuff I've been telling you about. Unconditional love as the prerequisite, the stable energy field upon which the higher faculties rest. So it's not the pinnacle of achievement, but it is a baseline. It's like something that you do all the time. Like, you know, when you're a little tiny child, you learn how to brush your teeth, but you don't just brush your teeth once and then you're done. Like, I brushed my teeth when I was 5 years old, now I'm done. No, you do it every day. It is part of basic body maintenance. We achieve the level of unconditional love and the love tone in our journey of becoming masters and mastering our mind. And then it's not just something that you do once. You do it all the time, all throughout your day. Every single minute of the day is being focused on returning to that love tone, that frictionless mental state of being able to move through time and space. Like I said, so how do you do this? Okay, wait. I know that I'm jumping ahead a little bit in my notes, but what you do is every morning you receive your rations, your daily rations of energy. Someone's coming in, so I'm happy that this class is still going. Your daily rations of energy, how much energy you need to be able to go through your day and do the things you need to do. And if you use your energy well, without a lot of blockages that are made out of negativity and judgment and negativity, like criticism and things like that, blockages, you have enough energy circulating through you in a level of unconditional love to keep on going. Like, let's say you're given 100 units of energy first thing in the morning, and you have no friction, no blockages. That energy keeps on swirling around, and it swirls through that guy and then back into me, and through you and back into me, and through you and back into me, and all of these different organisms it's swirling through. It's like, I gave you $100, then you gave it right back to me. I didn't just get back 99, I got $100 back. Then I went and I gave you $100, but you gave it back to me. This is the economy of heaven. I've spoken at length about the economy of hell. We got to talk about the economy of heaven and put all of our tendrils of attention and words and actions on that. It is the sharing of unconditional love tone, where you are continually sending out your energy of love and receiving it back all the time, and knowing that there's enough of everything that you need because of that frictionless interplay. Humanity's been going through these ages and stages and the different avatars of the ages, told you about that, and that what is changing now, since we have ended the past 2,000 years and come across this threshold, we're now in the age of the crown, violet, and a direct connection to God. And that means that God, the great symphony composer, the great conductor, where's my little tap, 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 now you will play. Now you will play this, and you will play this, and you will go here, and you will go here, and you will look over here and look at that and think about that. Now look over here, think about that. Now look at that and think about that. Now look at this and think about this. That's what your day is like. That's what your moment is like, when you are being conducted from moment to moment by this incredible artistic presence, and it feels wonderful and blissful and keeps you in a beautiful non-friction state where you are able to learn and grow and express this divine truth, God's divine truth, in your body and in your experience and in every moment. This is big. I want to tell you about this. When you use your own inner eye and your own inner connection to source to teach you everything and to know and guide you through each moment. None of this is a denial of Christ and Jesus, or the teacher of whose name was 2,000 years ago. We're not throwing that person out the window at all. It's an amazing person and an amazing master with amazing teachings that have really touched on all of us. It is the internalization of that presence, to know that Jesus Christ, or Yeshua Christ, is the inner teacher, as opposed to the external rules of a church, as I spoke about earlier in this presentation that tells you do's and don'ts, shoulds and should nots, do this and get burnt at the stake, don't do this, like all of those types of things. I speak lightheartedly about it, but it is not funny. Instead, it is really an internalization of that master teacher and knowing that they're within you and that they speak through this connection, and your heart connection. And that in every moment you can feel and you can know what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to be doing and going and saying and how you're supposed to be learning, and making mistakes is part of it, and being in radical love and radical self-forgiveness, compassion of yourself is part of the journey. I certainly make mistakes in my artwork and in my life and in my mind and in my behaviors. And then I'm like, time to rewind that, draw those tendrils back in. And if it is often like sometimes I'm thinking something about someone and like, I thought that thing about them. And it's like, how about I draw that back in? How about I redraw that in a more state? It might be like, that guy's this and that, and he's bad and he's terrible and he's an alcoholic. I draw this back in and be like, thinking about this guy, he obviously needs healing. He's obviously drinking too much. And, I will wish for him to have all the healing that he needs from substance abuse. Like, it's just it's a reframing of it. It's just an example. It's a different way of looking at things. Instead of like bad, wrong, shouldn't be doing that. It is more like recognition, acknowledgement. There's pain there. There's something that's going on, needs a healing, to wish for that person to be healed. That puts good food into that situation, as opposed to bad, wrong, shameful, like throw them out the window. So this is the embodiment of Christ the teacher, and also this larger divine presence that tells you what to do and what to think. Achieving mastery means aligning yourself with the central core timeline in the time vortex that I draw all the time. How? Aurora, how do I do this? That sounds so easy. Just align with the central core timeline. The answer is through mastering your mind. So all of these things are learning how to not listen to the junk food thoughts, not listen to the thoughts that are about shame and judging others and criticizing others, or shaming yourself, or shaming your own life choices, your own mistakes. So, a big part of it is like, okay, like I'm here, I'm learning. I'm a toddler of consciousness, I'm learning. And being able to maintain a stance of non-judgment of yourself. The energy that is used to build the attention tendril that reaches out and that feels and comprehends and ingests time comes from unconditional love. So if I get $100 of my daily rations of energy in the morning, I can use my $100 to be able to create my tendril of attention. And if I touch on the right things and the right thought structures throughout the day, then I maintain my energy structure, I maintain my metabolism, I stay wealthy with energy. And if I touch on certain things, then I'm like, I just lost $5 there, and I'll just fritter that away there, fritter that away there. And then it's like, now I'm down to zero. Now I'm down to zero, my shoulders go down, my spine goes down, everything goes down, I'm down. And that's sometimes what it feels like. So don't worry, that's not the end of like the next day you get a fresh start, brush it all off, have a fresh start, or you can always meditate, kind of bring yourself back to it, factory settings reset, be like, all right, I really screwed that all up, and now I just need to get myself back into some balance and back into some state. And I'm laughing because everybody experiences this. So just there's solidarity there. Please understand that. So using the energy that comes to you each day from the source, your daily rations, if you use it in a perfect frictionless system circulating throughout your body and not exhibiting any judgment and no blocks in terms of energy flow, like no sense of like right and wrong, this is allowed, this is not allowed, then you have this continued source of energy. And it's really freedom. Like when you're not saying like alcoholism is a good example, like of course it's not desirable, but it is allowed. People are allowed their mistakes. And I look at them and I love them, and I don't want them to be doing those mistakes, but they're allowed their mistakes. So I'm like, I clearly see that that is going on. The substance abuse is happening. They're allowed to abuse those substances. And then I would wish for them to have a better quality of existence, basically to be healed from the things that make them do those actions, because they are a part of the larger time field too. And they are on the far periphery of who they are. They're not achieving their greatness. This is big in the notes. A reminder, unconditional love flows throughout you and to others and then back again in a giant circuit of electrical currency. And although unconditional love is not the end of the journey, it is an essential skill on the journey towards mastery. You brush your teeth every day, even in adulthood. You practice unconditional love every day, every moment, even when you are a master. Never stop brushing your teeth. You are always being in unconditional love, even while you are becoming an expert and a virtuoso of where to place the attention of your mind and how to be guided and led by this divine principle. I already said this, you're not just in your own private kiddie pool swimming around. You are now reaching the ocean of consciousness and connecting with an outside level of galactic culture that you may learn from. That is very big. And so that's part of the maturity process. With more maturity and more responsibility, you also get more freedom, and your growth expands exponentially, because you get a lot more ideas, a lot more energy, but then also you can make mistakes that are on a much grander scale too. So you have to be aware of that. Like, oh, I can learn at an accelerated rate. I can make mistakes at an accelerated rate too, but then I can fix things at an accelerated rate, which is of course what we would all try to do. And the more that you can see and perceive clearly, then the fewer mistakes you make, especially when you are a well-intentioned person. And almost no one that I know or that I'm connected with or that I magnetize into my presence is an intentional miscreant, someone who's like, yeah, like I'm gonna do an intentional mistake. Like I'm gonna think wrong, I'm gonna touch you wrong, I'm gonna touch you wrong. Like I don't know anyone like that. So, and that's a big part of like the magnetic laws of attraction and that level of reality. Okay. Now I'm just going to go through, let me see how many more notes I have. I have a lot more notes. Let me see if I've gotten to this already. This is big. Part of becoming a galactic citizen and bridging the span between former limited human thought structures and future positive reality has to do with understanding, like, how can you take thought responsibility if you have something else affecting your mind. And now we're getting into like thought bullies and negative junk food type thoughts. If you are not fully in control of your mind, how can you be responsible as an adult or as a teenager or even as a toddler? How can you take responsibility for what you are emanating? If someone or something else literally is like pushing your head over to the side, like go over there and look at that crap. Now go over there and look at that crap. How can you take full responsibility? And I jokingly call this like getting a mental noogie from a bully. You know, like in school, you get a noogie from a bully, like they're, you know, doing something to you, like, you know, they're giving you pinching you or something like that. These thought forms exist, and I've experienced them extensively. And it is still necessary to take responsibility and to break free from them. But there are very real issues of consent. So in a pristine system, there are no overcoming of personal willpowers. Everything is, I think this thought because I choose to think this thought, not something else overcame my willpower and forced me. However, we do get into questionable areas of consent if something else attempts to override your willpower and make you think a thought that you would not have thought otherwise. Yes, exerting its authority over you, pushing you around or influencing you beyond your own willpower or attempting to distract you. And those thought forms do exist, so we must acknowledge them, even though we're not placing all of our tendrils of attention only on them. We're talking a lot about the positive, benevolent, coherent thought forms. Intentional placement of paint is analogous to how I use my mind and being a master of my mind and a master of the artist of my reality. So basically, when it all comes down to it, even if someone else took my hand with my paintbrush and went like this on my painting and, you know, screwed it all up, I would still feel the responsibility of carefully taking a paper towel, wiping away the stuff that's not supposed to be there, fixing everything up and making it look right. But know that, like, there are great parents, great spiritual teachers who are here watching everything, and they do see like that was out of bounds, like have the ref call a red flag, that was out of bounds, that was something else trying to waylay you on your journey or prevent you from being an artist of your reality in an unfettered sense. That is big. And that speaks a lot to consent. It could be a whole 3-hour teaching just on consent. The essential self, the true self, and identifying only with the thought, experiences, and behaviors of the central core persona. That's who you really are. That's who your central core timeline is. And just as eating positive food, like, you know, avocados and salad and, you know, pecans or something like that, like you will not grow to be 3,000 pounds by eating those foods. But like, yes, the Doritos and chocolates and all those things that are at the convenience store, those make the body get really distorted and out of shape. Eating foods that are mental foods, mental junk foods, are the things that make our coherent light body, which is made of thoughts itself, distorted and far from our true core persona. So how do you live forever? How do you play right notes? How do you stay a healthy, lean, well-formed, coherent light body? And the answer is by eating the right thought forms. And yes, negative entities do exist who will try to force you, like, I'm putting that bad stuff in your mouth. And you have to be like, no, like, I really don't want that, don't want to eat that, and really take responsibility for your body, even though they're trying to make you do it. So the no thank you, the not interested works well. And then also erasing incorrect thoughts. And for me, erasing, it almost feels like a vacuum cleaner or something, like, like I'm gonna draw that energy back into myself, because then I get it back. Like, oh, like that got emanated, that tendril got emanated, draw it back into me. So I'll draw that back, that back, that back, that back, that back. And then that feels really good, because then actually I feel energized. So that's actually a good practice you can do. 1 second. If you find yourself in a tailspin and your $100 rations at the end of the day, you're down to 0, you can be like, you know something, I wasted $5 over there. I'm going to draw it back in, draw that energy back in, draw that energy back in. You can actually do that as a little practice. And it's like a recovery, funds recovery, thought funds recovery, get it back. Only thinking the thoughts that I intend, and only think thoughts that come from the source and divine energy. Just like, you know, the sun creates our food, and then we eat food that comes from the sun, and then we send it back to the sun. It's a feedback loop. Ideally, we only eat thoughts that come from the sun. And then there are, you know, the interlopers and things like that. I'm going to read this from Melissa. She says, or they say, after realizing that, quote, I love myself, I matter. It helped me relax, de-stress, and realize that on a much grander scale and everything in between, I also love myself. And this thought and feeling is the food I feed myself. I feel safer as well as a kind of feeling. Thank you for sharing that. Radical self-love, radical self-compassion, self-forgiveness is really what brings us to freedom on this journey. The self-doubt, negativity, and huge self-criticism is the opposite of what we want to be doing. Or like, you know, like when you castigate yourself and you're like, I'm so bad, I forgot to send that birthday card. I was 3 days late on the birthday card. I'm so bad. That is not being a good person. But being a good person would be acknowledging and saying, like, you know something, I feel bad that I, you know, didn't send that birthday card on the right day. Call up the person and say, I feel bad that I didn't send your birthday card on the right day. I'm so sorry. And then it is done. It is over. And not carrying it with you. And then the next year, you remember their birthday properly. That's what it is. Like in behavioral mistakes, draw back in the negative energy of the behavioral mistake, make a rectification through your behavior. Like a real apology also involves a shift in your behavior or fixing it in some way, and then do better the next time. So some of it is energy work, some of it is cultural, interpersonal, behavioral work. And radical self-love is about all of these things. And it allows you to be a better musician, because when you're so worried about playing the wrong note, like, I'm going to play the wrong note, I'll be a bad person, oh my God, that is antithetical to real creativity. But the beautiful comment that Melissa wrote about self-love and self-acceptance, this is what allows us to be able to go through life in a relaxed and comfortable way, which is how you really jam like Jimi Hendrix. Relaxed and comfortable, playing on the piano of life. Yes, grooving, yes. Transitioning from infancy to toddlerhood. Mastering each movement of the mind in order to become a person who is worthy of full manifestation. That's what I want to get to. To become worthy of being an ascended master, full manifestation, literally creating all reality with your mind. All reality with your mind as a beautiful lucid dream with no scary clowns. That is what mastering the mind is all about. So we're at this moment, most of us, in transition from infancy to toddlerhood. We're like, okay, you know you have a light body, you know you have a tendril of attention, you know you're doing stuff, you don't know exactly what you're doing, right? Sometimes you still fall off balance. Sometimes you still make mistakes. Sometimes you still fall down, go boom. And then, you know, you need help and assistance to be able to get back up. But it is still taking personal responsibility. Like even if you're a toddler, you have to learn like, okay, I did this, I'm learning from my mistake. And each time you learn, each time you grow. From my present state of toddlerhood, I can still use pens and computers and talk directly with people that are embedded within the flow of time. and I have some control over the reality manifestation events. And we talk about Angel and some other people, like Angel manifested a wheelbarrow that she needed during home project. And we've talked about this too, like reality manifestation. Like if you're a toddler, you're like, yeah, like I need this thing. I need tiny screws. And I find them exactly in my toolbox where I needed them. And how could that be? I manifested it with my mind. It's not the same as manifesting an entire like planetary and social structure consciously, which I think we are manifesting unconsciously. We're moving into that level of being able to say, yes, like let's make a whole beautiful system where like we don't have to have money and everybody has plenty of food and everybody has what they need and there's no guns and we're all safe and we're moving there. But for right now, wheelbarrows and tiny screws that are of exactly the right size that you need. And that's what I'm trying to say, like being in this level. It's glorious to recognize you're still in childhood, you're still working it out, still figuring things out, and give yourself the time space that you need to be able to become a fully ascended master, where yes, with your mind, you envision and manifest whole complex cultures, everything from ecosystems to interpersonal relationships to economies, and everything is perfect and everything is divine and everybody has every bit of what they need. And we will be doing this. So I'm a toddler, I'm still in the physical body, clearly drinking coffee, I'm decaf coffee, drinking a little something right now, learning how to be sustained fully on pure light, learning how to be sustained fully on pure vibration and frequency food. And it's an amazing journey to do so. From my present state of learning to be a mature adult, I speak with and interact with the mature adults who are ascended masters. They are my teachers. They are my avatars. They live as coherent light beings as a part of my own body. They help me to remain upright during my day and help to guide me as to what notes to play in my life. And not just me, but you also have access to all of them. They are living presences in your body. So the I am statements of what I'm saying here, please embody them in your own body. These are cosmic parents. They're here to help to parent us. They have transcended the flesh. They have the capacity to immediately manifest reality and no longer manifest things from a fear state. They're in a state of pure love all the time. My litmus test as to whom I wish to interact with, because there's the coherent light body, ascended masters, beautiful beings, thought forms I wish to touch on, and there's the thought bullies. And the truth is, I wouldn't eat any of the thought bullies' junk food if they didn't like force it into my mouth, like the horrible junk food put into. I'm like, bleh, bleh, like I don't want you, I don't want you. But they're trying to be in your face. I'm in your face. I'm in your face because they want healing. I make a choice. If they're helping you to live to your fullest potential and your highest light and to occupy that core sense of who you are and who you really are in an infinite timeline, then that's a being whom you wish to interact with. And if it's a being that's about negativity or anything less than love, critical of self or others, or a bully encouraging you to look in distracted directions, that's a big one. Just distraction. Look over here, now look over here, now look over here, now look over here. And then the whole day has gone by with me just being like, snap your fingers, snap your fingers, snap your fingers over here. That's all mental junk food. And it will make your thought body distorted. It's not suitable food for one's mind to maintain a streamlined and essential form. Ascended master beings, when they interact with those of us who are still embedded in the flow of time, are guiding you to eat the right food, the right thoughts, to correct your mental nutrients so that you will grow a lean essential body in the non-physical realm, and that is your light body. Your light body is made of consciousness. It's made of thought forms. It's made of time. When you eat the right thought forms, your light body is healthy and coherent and lives for forever. It's your diamond light body. It's indestructible. And we're in the process of creating and making these diamond light bodies for ourselves. And your light body is what you will be inhabiting as events progress. And I told you it's made of ideas, and you will use it to travel in higher dimensions beyond the physical world. So you're in the process of making your vehicle that you will inhabit and use for when you are in a higher dimensional state. Unconditional love is the universal currency or cosmic currency. It's like just like money, but it's not money here, like the way we have a negative connotation of money being something like dirty, wrong, bad, shameful, like here, like have $1, kid, like I'm chomping my cigar, like have $1, kid, you know, like whatever, paying it in this naughty way. It is energy that is earned through righteousness and virtue. It is a food that feeds both you while you are here embodied in flesh, and also feeds the coherent light form beings that are no longer embodied in flesh. In fact, it is currency because it is what flows between us and them. So just as I said, I got my $100 in the morning and I had a perfect non-judgmental day, and I flowed that $100 out to you, and you paid it back to me, you paid it back to me, you paid it back to me, kept the flow going in perfect figure eights between me and all the embodied people around me. We do the same thing with coherent thought form beings. We can do the same thing with someone like Jesus Christ. Can send out energy to him, it, they, them pronouns, and then receive it back. Send it out to gurus and masters of the Sikh tradition. Send it out to Buddha. Send it out to nameless people from an oral tradition and receive it back. That is the heavenly economy. That's the economy of heaven. And none of this is biblical. I'm using these words in quotes, but it is based entirely upon the love tone and sending out this higher dimensional food. It's a frequency food, and being sustained on all levels by the sharing of this frequency food. Controlling one's mind with attention and intention, being guided by divine guidance, spending very little time focusing on what the media and the TV, government propaganda, corporate propaganda, distractions, and fear-based realities wish for one to focus on, and instead spending all of your time and attention in a direct connection with the source, the pure abstract organizing principle of the universe or of the cosmos. These are the goals of what we wish to be doing in terms of achieving a mature state, becoming an ascended master and being able to transcend the physicality. That's what growing up looks like to us, from infancy to toddlerhood through the maturation process, and then becoming an adult. Okay, first I'm going to read Rainbow's comment. Thank you. They are complimenting my shirt. Thank you so much. Is it available? Yes, it is available on my Etsy shop. I had issues because I've been moving in my internet connections and all sorts of bank accounts and different things. So my Etsy shop just needed to get turned back on again. So it might take a few days, but yes, I have this design in my shop, so you can check it out there. Delilah, so great to see you, and says, how do we discern that feel while learning? Because sometimes when we are learning a lesson, it doesn't feel good. Oh, I'm getting you, girl. Doesn't feel good, but after you can look back and see that that is what you were going through was a loving lesson and helpful. How can you distinguish basically a loving lesson from the pooties? Such a good question, so well put. I'm going to paraphrase. Sometimes lessons are painful. Sometimes it does hurt to have either insight, like if I'm like, okay, like if I'm being really honest with myself, because I didn't send that birthday card, I actually felt like a pile of crapola. And that's part of the learning of the lesson. Like if I was inconsiderate to someone else, I felt bad about it. I just have to admit to it. But in that example, I would say that the self-honesty is not about self-blame and negativity and judgment. It's just about honest. Like if you put on shoes that are too tight, you're like, these shoes really squeeze my feet. I cannot walk in them. They feel terrible. And some actions, like some activities, don't fit me. That's what it is. Like your coherent light body, you should feel like, oh, like I'm so expanded, I'm so relaxed, I feel exactly like my true self, I feel great. Like, your clothing, that's your comfy clothes or whatever, your best, like I'm totally at peace in my being, as opposed to like this girdle feels incredibly uncomfortable and these tight shoes feel incredibly uncomfortable. They're actions that don't fit, basically. They don't fit the real you. So it can be painful or uncomfortable to recognize in a lesson. I did this thing and it's not the real me. Like I treated this person like crap, or I was inconsiderate to them. It's not the real me. The pain or the discomfort is that recognition. And then the real loving life lesson. Remember, Christ and Jesus and the inner master teacher who is radically loving and merciful and compassionate on you and loves you. And also like takes no BS. Like don't try to BS yourself or anyone else. Just be honest. Like, look, that action doesn't fit you. It's not who you really are. It's not what you really are. You're something and someone different and greater than that. And you just admit to it, and you admit to the mistake. I say this all the time. The greatest pain that an ego will ever feel, it's not the pain of getting your arms and legs chopped off or something like that. It is the pain of having to admit that you made a mistake. Just say, oh, I made a mistake. I did something wrong. But it is not about like, I'm so bad, I'm so wrong, or anything like that. As I jokingly make my voice sound exaggerated, it is the sense of recognizing that you didn't do it right and then finding some way to erase it, fix it, rectify it. And then what feels good about the lesson is that you get absolved, you get forgiven, you forgive yourself and you fix it up. So whatever is your thing that you're concerned about, like I said, you call up the person that you're late on the birthday and be like, I'm so sorry, I forgot about your birthday, and just have it out instead of carrying it around with you forever. And that's also big in families too. While the person is still alive on this planet, take the opportunity to talk with your aged parents or whatever it was about a thing, but in a nice way. But to be like, I'm so sorry that I ever did that thing when I was a teenager growing up and I spoke to you in such a bad way. Or how about this? Maybe it's a big thing. Maybe you haven't spoken to someone in 20 years and they're still on the planet. You can call them up and you can be like, look, so sorry we haven't spoken in 20 years. Can we put blah, blah behind us and move on? And I want to apologize and be in your life. And it's like, then you don't have to carry that with you. It's like, it's truly freeing. It's truly healing for everyone involved. And what feels good about it is the burdens are lifted. The boulders are off of my shoulders. And then my back can go back like this and my spine feels great. As opposed to, now here's the pooties. The pooties are like this. You didn't send that birthday card and you're a piece of shit and you're always going to be a piece and you're never going to be anything in your life and you're the worst person in the world and you deserve to go to hell and you deserve to suffer and you're nothing, and that like all of those types of unworthiness, on redemption, you will never get out of hell, you deserve to suffer, or anything that tells us that in our life. Those are all negative thought forms, because you don't deserve to suffer. Even if you make a mistake, a small transgression or a great mistake. Let's say you made a huge mistake. I mean, many years ago, I knew someone and I sent him so much positivity and love, and he had an accident with a loaded firearm, and he actually did kill someone else accidentally, and like a manslaughter situation. And that's like a very heavy burden to have to carry. But I don't feel that that person deserves to suffer because they did that in their life. How about someone who's in the military, someone that shot someone in war or killed someone else, as the result of dropping a bomb? Like, I don't think that they deserve to suffer in hell endlessly either. I think that all of these people deserve redemption and healing, and that they are part of divine presence and divine consciousness that needs to come to, a sense of resolution and love and forgiveness on all levels. I don't believe in endless suffering at all. That's why I created Flying Rainbow Lasagna, so that there's a place that's like entropy, where thought forms can go to be at rest, not to be endlessly suffering. So on all of those levels, that's why I don't identify with the idea of the Inquisition and the Christian doctrine from the church and things like that, which is basically a fear-based doctrine. If you do this, you will burn endlessly in hell. And I don't believe in any of that or encourage that towards others. And so really, when we get into levels of personal healing and planetary healing, if others have harmed you and you've experienced a great amount of pain, there's still that sense of, how do you forgive those who have given you pain and do something with them? Like, where should they go? What should you do with them? They shouldn't be, running around hurting people anymore, but also we don't want them to be endlessly suffering either. And will they suffer from their own sense of guilt? Will they see that they have done something wrong and then place themselves in a position of profound suffering, thinking that it is necessary somehow? So the Pooties are unloving, extremely judgmental, and will say a lie. And the lie is that you deserve your suffering. You deserve to suffer endlessly. All of these beings deserve, and the suffering is like, feeding pain, feeding the pain body, basically, of the larger time structure. And that we don't want to feed the pain body. We want to feed the love body and heal all of the pains that are the symptoms of imbalances. And sometimes it just takes a lot more cosmic perspective to be able to see the origins of the imbalances. that gives us the unconditional love tone. Because it's not just about like everything is acceptable. So you can take a knife and stab me in the eye. Like, no, that is not acceptable. Do you understand? I'm very, very clear on this. Do not be a cosmic doormat. You don't have to sit there and suffer and allow people to treat you badly. That is not what acceptance is. Acceptance is also acceptance of your own right to exist and your own right not to suffer. So that is big and big and big and huge. But this is also about how to forgive your own transgressions and how to see the transgressions of others and things that you don't agree with. Like, I don't agree with the idea of violence as a solution. Like, if I simply don't like you, to pick up a gun and shoot you as a way of solving my problem. I don't think that that's an effective solution. Like, clearly, it's not how I live my life. However, there are political regimes and individuals that do live their lives in this way. And I have to accept, I'm like, okay, well, they're out there doing that. It's their choices and their freedoms, and I allow and accept it. But also, I don't want them to do that to me. I'm like, don't think that you're going to solve life's problems by using violence and guns and weapons or whatever against me. I don't agree with that. I don't accept that, because I also accept and promote my own basic right to existence and my own capacity not to suffer. And that's big. That's another thing that I also take issue with in what I feel is a bit of a distortion in the presentation of teachings of the great teacher from 2000 years ago. I don't think that you have to present yourself for destruction or for suffering as a part of an example of acceptance, love, and forgiveness, because part of basic cosmic law is you're allowed to exist and you're not made for suffering, and you're not made to be someone else's punching bag, and you're not made to be someone else's target practice. Definitely not. So acceptance is a two-way, it's a reciprocity. There's reciprocity. I accept you that you want to do this, but I also accept myself that I don't want that to be done to me. So there's a real balance here. On the level of pure energy, it's very obvious. And when you start to see at this level and perceive reality structures, you can see the math and you know what's truthful. But if you are still working at the anthropomorphic level, which is kind of the level of stories and narratives in people's lives and events, then it can be more muddy and there's a lot more wiggle room for interpretation. But I want you to know that in the cosmic sense, like in the math sense of the cosmos, it's not just a giant free-for-all where it's like, yes, you can do whatever you want, and then it's whatever, like you can kill and murder and mutilate, and then there are profound consequences for everything that you do. What you send out does come back to you, even though a lot of what humans have experienced here in this time and place has been a delayed or a diminished execution of cosmic law. But that's also a lot of what brings me here as a presence, to reinvigorate the expression of cosmic law. What you send out comes back to you. So this is the sense of like, okay, like if you are going to send out a bullet to someone else, it would immediately turn right around and come back to you. Like that would be cosmic law. Or let's say an evil spell, I'm going to shoot you with my magic wand, kapow, I'm going to kill you with a magic wand, but instead it backfires and comes immediately back to you. Or a negative thought would be saying something like, if you hate someone else, or I judge you, or I want this bad thing to happen to you, and it immediately turns around and comes back and bites you. All of that would be cosmic law. So really what we're looking to do is reinvigorate the pristine system of cosmic law so that all of these lessons are learned and experienced immediately, as opposed to reverberations that take a long time over many years, lives, or parallel lives, or subsequent concurrent existences, which is kind of how the concept of karma has been working out. I know that's an incredibly long answer to what was kind of a short question, but it's a really profound short question. And it speaks deeply to the concept of we are learning, like as infants of consciousness and toddlers of consciousness, and moving into ascended mastery. Let me just drink a little more. Moving into greater levels of personal responsibility. When you're an ascended master, you take responsibility for everything, every little thought, and every little thought is manifested around you as your life and your body and your life experience. And that's like, there's no escaping it. So the real answer to all of these questions is, at a certain point, there's no time lag. You send something out and you receive it instantaneously. You get very clear feedback on whether you have played a wrong note in the cosmic concert, and that organisms that have played many wrong notes, they would be like down to zero. They would have not only zero currency, they would have negative, like negative $1,000. Like they don't have any money. They don't have $1,000. They owe $1,000. You understand? That's real cosmic law. That's really the understanding of these things on that is really what galactic society is like. That's really what it's like in the time place where I come from. So, I mean, I don't want to complain, but I'm used to a very different level of interaction where everybody is very self-responsible and we're in a pristine system and everybody is completely honest, just because there's no way to hide anything. And yes, if you didn't send that birthday card from, earlier in the year, like that shows on your energy field. It's very obvious to anyone that can see, but also all of your good deeds are evident too. And that the idea of redemption, like if someone has done something intentionally malevolent or harmful, that's written on their face like a scar. But then all of the positive things that they do, that they could do to redeem themselves, would also be written on their face too. And so you have to hold the door open for that, to understand that even the most quote unquote evil or malevolent person can have the capacity or opportunity to rectify things. Fine, if they're in negative 1,000 in their bank account, maybe they could eventually do something that will earn them back that money, give it back, fix things up. Did you notice how, as I said that, the light got brighter back there? Like that's, the sun came out, the light got brighter in my room. There's the possibility for redemption. That's what we're really talking about here. The darkest presences or the most evil or the most distorted beings that are in need of profound healing, they can have that profound healing, and that their good parts can be rectified and the parts that should never have been in existence can go into entropy. And that's the healing of the entirety, because nothing and no one is disposable. Yeah, it all needs to be healed. And that's the really like pull way back perspective. And it can be challenging when you're submerged down here to have the pull way back perspective where you're understanding all these things, because the pain and the suffering here is very real. And I'll never pretend that it's not. I'll never negate or invalidate your very real pain and suffering when someone is killed, when someone hurts you, when someone makes something that is wrong or bad in your life. Then it's like, yeah, that's very real. And then it does become part of the cosmic fabric. And then it does end up being a healing experience on a much, much larger, grander scale. But we're talking about like wars, genocides, mass starvations, mass environmental degradations, all of these things. Like I can't just explain it away and say it's something small, it's something huge. It's very big and huge. But then with unconditional love, when you get to these higher levels, you see how all of these things are interconnected. And then you do see the resolution and you do see the healing. And that's more of what it is like when you're at the perspective of the ascended master and of the adults. Like how can these adults walk around being like, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine. Like everything is not fine, but everything is the process of getting fine. But you do see the acceptance is from the perspective of having greater perspective. And also, I came from that level of perspective and seeing everything that's going on. And I still got an opportunity to say, that thing that's going on there is something I choose to intervene in. Like the unfairness and the injustice that was in this particular woman's life that caused me to be a walk-in into this person's life. I said, I sense an injustice in a cosmic level, and I'm going to do something about it. So ascended masters do act. They don't just sit around being like, everything's fine, floating on a cloud, eating a strawberry. Like it's not always like that. There's also a lot of responsibility, but it's also seeing the interconnectedness of everything means when you act, you take radical responsibility for the things that you do because you know you have a big impact. And it's acting with your mind. So when I created Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I was acting with my mind. Here, I did this thought over here, and I made an impact on the world and an impact, and I acted with my mind. And then I still take the repercussions of that action and the way that that has changed and transformed. So let's say you're an ascended master and you're outside of time and you send a message into this world and you affect somebody's life and it makes this happen. Like it makes a domino, a cascade effect of all these things happen. And it takes an enormous amount of wisdom to be able to see and know, if I do that, this is the cascade effect and this is what's going to happen. If I do that, this is going to cascade. And if you really want for things to get better and a holistic healing of the entirety to happen, then yeah, it takes an enormous amount of coordination and many people acting together, both those who are embodied in the physicality world and those who are transcended and who no longer have physical bodies and no longer eat food. Everything is working together for this massive restructuring. And that's the real answer, that because our lives and our journeys here at this level of non-mature development absolutely have a huge impact on those who are already mature, who are already light beings. We're like growing up and becoming light beings, and we're the next generation, and they've already graduated, and you have to keep on having graduating classes. You understand? Like you have to keep the flow going. And it's always like they are helping the next generation. And then when you become an ascended master, then you will reach back and help the next generation, constantly helping consciousness to level up and go towards these levels of refinement. So every generation has to care about the previous generations. And really that level of care and consideration is what motivated me to create the Flying Rainbow Lasagna portal and to even come here into this level of experience for this rectification journey that is happening. That it was necessary because we wanted to make sure this, graduating class is going to be able to graduate. And then once we graduate, then there's the next level of consciousness that we will help to be able to move into higher levels. It's reciprocal. That's what it is. And then one day you'll be a star making all of this happen. Like you get up to the level of being a light being, and then you get to be like a bunch of light beings together. And then at a certain point, you're like the sun in the sky, a star, and you're emanating these realities. And you'll remember this conversation. And you'll be like, now I understand why we had to do all of those things and why we had to help all of these subsequent generations and why we had to receive all of this help in order to be able to get to this moment. But then as soon as you remember that, you're like, and now it's time for me to give this stuff out. Like I received all this help and I received all this nourishment and all this good light and all this good stuff. And now it's time for me to give this on out again. Yeah. Rainbow Body says, love lasagna to all. Until next time. I think that's a beautiful moment to end upon because it has been a long broadcast. I will say thank you to so much. I know there's also some construction noise. I hope you can hear me okay over all of that stuff. Thank you for everybody who tunes into these teachings and lectures, both live and in the archive. Thank you to everybody who is enrolled. Thank you to everybody who accesses the recorded lessons on Teachable. This was in concurrence with level 2, lesson 4. All right. It's all about telepathy and the higher dimensional senses. And all this said, so everybody's saying thank you. Cheryl, Angela, Delilah, Lisette, you're so very welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everyone for their applying themselves and their understanding and their comprehension. Melissa, you too. Thank you so much. And thank you. I know I'm naming everyone who is here present, but also profound thanks to, there's a large group of people that catch the archive. We have about 55 people that are in this class just this semester. And then there are many people that do watch it and the videos are shared also. So my profound thanks to all of you for being here and exposing yourselves to these ideas. You're eating health food for your coherent light bodies by listening to these lectures. So I applaud you and I thank you, because doing that work is literally part of what is making everybody level up, and we're leveling up and we're getting to wonderful moments of transcendence and graduation. And also we don't have to rush. There's time. Okay. So thank you so much, everyone.